Rain hammered the glass tower like bullets while Seoul burned below in neon and shadow. 78 floors above the city, Kael Minjae Ryu stood frozen beside a white plastic lunchbox that smelled like burnt garlic and everything he'd lost. The American girl who brought it didn't know she'd just painted a target on her back. His rival, Lu Shenxiu, already had her photograph. His 6-year-old daughter had stopped screaming only when the girl held her. And for the first time in 20 years, the most feared man in Seoul's underworld realized he was terrified, not of death, but of wanting something he couldn't control. One lunchbox, one woman, one choice that would drown the city in blood. If you want to see how far love can fall before it hits bottom, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The rain started 3 minutes before midnight. Kyle didn't believe in omens, but he noticed the timing anyway. 20 years running, Seoul's shadow economy had trained him to notice everything. The slight hesitation before a handshake, the angle of a security camera, the precise moment when rain began falling against bulletproof glass like God's own warning shot. He stood at the window of his 78th floor office, watching water distort the city below into something abstract and violent. Neon signs bled together. Car lights stretched into comets. The whole sprawling kingdom he'd built from blood and shipping containers looked like it was melting. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. 42 years old. Sharp suit that cost more than most people earned in 6 months. Face that had forgotten how to smile sometime around his 30th birthday. Eyes that had watched men die and felt nothing afterward except the need to shower. The intercom on his desk buzzed. Mr. Ryu. His head of security, Jin, sounded tense. The new hire is still here. Kale checked his watch. 12:03 a.m. Which one? The American, executive assistant position. She's at her desk. Tell her to go home. I tried. She said she has work to finish. Kyle felt something tighten in his chest. Irritation, probably. Or maybe just exhaustion. Then let her finish. He cut the connection before Jin could respond. The office around him was pristine. Black marble floors. Minimalist furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Abstract paintings on the walls that cost fortunes and meant nothing. Everything clean. Everything controlled. Everything dead. His phone vibrated. A message from his daughter's nanny. Nari had another episode. Took 40 minutes to calm her down. She's asking for her mother again. Kael read it twice, then set the phone face down on his desk. His daughter was 6 years old. Her mother had been dead for 2 years. The math was simple and devastating. Nari would spend more of her life without her mother than with her. The thought sat in Kael's chest like a stone he'd swallowed and couldn't cough up. He walked to the small bar cart near his desk and poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a crystal glass. The motion was automatic, comforting in its routine. He didn't drink it immediately, just held the glass and watched the amber liquid catch the light. That's when the smell hit him. Not whiskey, not the leather of his chair or the faint chemical tang of cleaning products the night staff used. Garlic, sesame oil, something sharp and almost burnt. The scent crawled under his skin and grabbed something primitive in his brain. Memory fired before thought. A tiny kitchen in Busan, his grandmother standing at a gas stove with a blackened pan. The smell of garlic burning because she always cooked it too hot. Always said the burnt edges made it sweeter. He was 7 years old again for exactly 3 seconds. Then he was 42, standing in a tower he'd built by making men disappear, and the smell was coming from outside his office. Kael set down the whiskey glass and walked to the door. The executive floor was empty except for one desk positioned directly outside his office. It was new. The previous assistant had quit after 8 months without explanation. The replacement had started 3 days ago. She sat with her back to him, hunched over a laptop with a white plastic lunchbox open beside her keyboard. The desk lamp created a small circle of warm light around her, while the rest of the floor stretched into darkness. Kael watched her through the smoked glass wall of his office. She was young, early 20s maybe. The file he'd barely glanced at said her name was Iris Vale, American, art student, working to pay off student loans. She wore a thrift store cardigan that was too big for her frame and had her dark hair pulled back in a messy knot. She picked up something with her chopsticks, noodles mixed with kimchi and what looked like spam, and ate without looking away from her screen. The smell intensified. Garlic and chili oil and something else he couldn't name, something that made his chest hurt. Kale stood there longer than he should have. The previous assistants had all been interchangeable, polished, professional, terrified. They'd learned quickly not to stay late, not to eat at their desks, not to exist too loudly in his presence. This girl had been told the same rules. She was breaking every single one. He should fire her. The thought formed clearly. Instead, he turned away from the glass and went back to his desk. But the smell followed him, wrapped around him, made him remember things he'd spent years trying to bury, under money and power and violence. His grandmother's kitchen, his wife's laugh, the feeling of being human instead of a thing that wore human skin and signed death warrants. Kale picked up his phone and typed a message to Jin. Background check on Iris Vale. Everything. I want it by morning. Then he sat in his expensive chair in his expensive office and tried not to think about the girl outside eating cheap noodles like she wasn't sitting in the heart of an empire built on fear. The next evening, Kyle arrived at the office to find Nari sitting in his chair. His daughter looked impossibly small behind the massive desk. She had her mother's face, delicate features, serious dark eyes, but none of her mother's warmth. Nari had stopped smiling after the funeral, stopped talking much, moved through the world like a ghost who'd forgotten she was dead. The nanny stood beside her, looking exhausted. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ryu. She insisted on coming here after school. I couldn't—" "It's fine." Kale crossed to the desk and crouched beside his daughter. "Nariya." The child looked at him without expression. "You should be at home," he said quietly. Nari shook her head once. Her hand moved to her coat pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, carefully folded. She set it on the desk between them. Kyle unfolded it. A crayon drawing. 3 figures standing in front of a building. One tall figure in black, one small figure holding the tall figure's hand, and one figure with yellow hair standing separate from them, smiling. The yellow-haired figure had a speech bubble. Inside, Nari had written in careful English, "Hello." "Who is this?" Kyle touched the yellow-haired figure. Nari's eyes shifted toward the office door, toward the desk outside. Understanding dropped into Kyle's stomach like a rock. He stood and walked to the glass wall. Iris Vale sat at her desk, typing something on her laptop. She wore another oversized sweater, this one dark green, and had her hair down today. As he watched, she paused, stretched her arms above her head, then went back to typing. Behind him, the nanny spoke carefully. "She saw Miss Vale yesterday when we came to drop off your documents. She's been drawing that picture ever since." Kale looked at his daughter. Nari stared back at him with eyes that hadn't shown interest in anything for 2 years. "Stay here," he told the nanny. He walked out of his office. Iris looked up as he approached. Her expression shifted, not fear exactly, but a wariness that made sense. Her boss approaching at 6 p.m. when most of the floor was empty. She sat up straighter. "Mr. Ryu, do you need something?" Her Korean was decent but accented. American universities taught the basics, but not the music of it. "My daughter is in my office," Kyle said. Iris blinked. "Oh, okay." "She drew a picture of you." A pause. "I'm sorry?" "Yesterday. You saw her." Yes. She was here briefly. She seemed—" Iris stopped herself. "Seemed what?" "Sad," Iris said quietly. She seemed very sad. The honesty startled him. Most people lied to him reflexively, told him what they thought he wanted to hear. "She wants to meet you," Kyle said. Iris's eyes widened slightly. "Your daughter wants to meet me?" "Apparently. Why would—" She stopped again, collecting herself. "Is that appropriate? I'm just an assistant." "She's 6 years old. She doesn't understand appropriate." Iris looked past him toward his office. He watched her face carefully, watched for the calculation, the angle, the moment when people realized his daughter could be useful. Instead, Iris just looked concerned. "Okay," she said finally. "If you think it's all right." Kale stepped aside. Iris saved whatever she was working on, then stood and walked past him toward the office. She moved carefully, like someone navigating unfamiliar territory. At the door, she glanced back at him. He nodded once. She went inside. Kale stayed where he was, watching through the glass. Iris approached the desk slowly. She didn't crouch to Nari's level, didn't do any of the performative things adults usually did around children. She just stood there and waited. Nari looked at her for a long moment. Then she picked up the crayon drawing and held it out. Iris took it gently, studied it. Her expression softened in a way that made Kael's chest tighten. She said something. Kael couldn't hear through the glass, but he watched his daughter's face. Nari almost smiled. Almost. Iris set the drawing down carefully on the desk, then pulled a pen from her pocket. She wrote something on the paper and showed it to Nari. His daughter nodded. They continued like that for several minutes. Iris writing, Nari responding with gestures or small nods. The nanny stood off to the side, looking stunned. Finally, Iris stood. She touched the top of Nari's head very gently, then walked back out of the office. She stopped beside Kael. She asked if I liked her drawing, Iris said. I told her it was beautiful. She asked if I'd be here tomorrow. I said yes. That's all? That's all she was ready for. Iris walked back to her desk and sat down. Kael stood there, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. His daughter had more interaction with a stranger in 5 minutes than she'd had with him in 6 months. Inside his office, Nari was looking at the drawing again. This time, she was smiling. The background check arrived at 3 a.m. Kael sat in his home office, another pristine space that felt more like a hotel room than somewhere he actually lived, and read through Jin's report. Iris Vale, 21 years old. American citizen, born in Portland, Oregon. Parents dead. Car accident when she was 17. Raised by her grandmother after that. Full scholarship to art school, but the grandmother got sick during Iris's second year. Medical bills. Iris dropped out to work. Grandmother died anyway. Currently drowning in debt, student loans, medical bills, credit cards maxed out trying to keep someone alive who died regardless. Came to Seoul 6 months ago on a work visa. Cocktail waitress at 3 different bars before landing the assistant position at Kael's company. No criminal record, no suspicious associations, no social media presence worth mentioning, just a girl trying to survive in a city that ate people alive. Kael closed the file. He thought about his own grandmother, about the tiny kitchen in Busan, about burnt garlic and poverty, and the way love could exist even when everything else was falling apart. Then he thought about Iris sitting at her desk eating cheap noodles like they were the most important meal in the world. His phone buzzed, a message from Jin. Is there a problem with the new hire? Kael stared at the question for a long time. No, he typed back, just routine. He set the phone down and looked out the window of his home office. The mansion spread around him in the darkness, 10,000 square feet of marble and glass, an expensive emptiness. Nari was asleep somewhere in the east wing, or awake. He wasn't sure. The nanny would know. Kael stood and walked through the dark house. He found Nari's room easily. The door was cracked open. Inside, a nightlight shaped like a moon cast soft blue light across the floor. Nari was awake. She sat in bed holding a stuffed rabbit that had belonged to her mother. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? Kael asked from the doorway. She shook her head. He came inside and sat on the edge of her bed. They stayed like that in silence. Father and daughter. 2 people who loved each other and had no idea how to bridge the distance. The woman you met today, Kael said quietly. Miss Vale. Did you like her? Nari nodded. Why? His daughter thought about it. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft he almost missed it. She looked at me like I'm real. The words hit Kael harder than any bullet ever had. He reached out slowly and touched his daughter's hair. She didn't pull away. That was something. Get some sleep, he whispered. Nari lay down, still holding the rabbit. Kael stood and walked to the door. He was almost out when her voice stopped him. Appa? He turned. Can she come here? Nari asked. Miss Vale, can she visit? Every instinct in Kael's body screamed danger, bringing an outsider into his home, into his daughter's life, creating attachment, creating vulnerability, creating a target. We'll see, he said. It was the best he could offer. He closed the door gently and stood in the hallway for a long time, trying to remember when his life had become a series of locked rooms and careful distances. Then he went back to his office and poured another drink he wouldn't finish. By the end of the week, a routine had formed. Every evening at 6:30, Iris would eat dinner at her desk. The white lunchbox appeared like clockwork, sometimes noodles, sometimes rice and kimchi. Once, something that smelled like her grandmother's kitchen had been teleported directly into his office. Kyle pretended not to notice, but he noticed everything. The way she hummed quietly while she worked. The way she kept a small, succulent plant on her desk that was definitely not approved office decoration. The way she never seemed afraid of him, even when every other person on the floor practically trembled when he walked past. On Thursday, Nari came to the office again. This time, she brought drawings. She sat at Iris's desk. Iris had given up her chair without being asked, and drew while Iris worked beside her on a laptop balanced on her knees. They didn't talk much, just existed in the same space. Kale watched from his office. Jin appeared beside him. "Sir, this is becoming regular." "I'm aware." "Is that wise?" Kale looked at his head of security. Jin had been with him for 15 years, had seen things that would break most people, understood that Kyle's world operated on different rules than the daylight world. "No," Kyle said, "it's not wise." Then, "But I'm allowing it anyway." Jin was quiet for a moment. Then, "Lucien Seo has been asking questions." Kael's attention sharpened. "What kind of questions?" "About your daughter, about changes in your routine." Jin paused. "About the new assistant." Something cold settled into Kael's chest. Lucien Seo ran the second largest syndicate in Seoul. They had an arrangement, territories clearly marked, conflicts resolved through negotiation instead of bloodshed. It had been working for 3 years, but Lucien was ambitious, patient, always watching for weakness. "Increase security on this floor," Kale said. "And I want eyes on Seo. Everything he does, everyone he talks to." "Already done." "Good." Jin left. Kale looked back through the glass. Nari was showing Iris a drawing. Iris smiled, genuinely smiled, and said something that made his daughter's face light up. The warmth in that moment was so pure it made Kael's chest ache, and all he could think was, "This is the weakness that will destroy us." Checked. The confrontation happened on Friday. Kael was in a meeting with his logistics team, legitimate business, shipping routes, and customs schedules, when his phone vibrated with a message from Jin. Iris stayed late, alone. Building is mostly empty. Kael looked at the time, 9:47 p.m. He stood. "We're done. Send me the finalized reports by Monday." The logistics team exchanged glances but didn't argue. Nobody argued with Kael Ryu. He took the elevator to the 78th floor. The executive level was dark, except for the small circle of light around Iris's desk. She sat exactly where she'd been that first night, eating from her white lunchbox and working on something. Kyle approached quietly. She didn't notice him until he was 5 feet away. When she looked up, she startled, actually jumped slightly in her chair. "Jesus, Mr. Ryu, I didn't hear you." "Why are you still here?" "Working," she gestured at her screen. "The quarterly reports needed formatting, and I wanted to—" "It's 10 o'clock on a Friday night. I know what time it is." Her tone had an edge, not quite insubordinate, but close. Kale found himself oddly intrigued. "Do you have somewhere else to be?" he asked. Something flickered across her face. "Not particularly." "Friends? Boyfriend? Are you asking as my boss or as someone making conversation? Does it matter?" Iris set down her chopsticks. "Look, Mr. Ryu, if I'm doing something wrong, just tell me. I need this job. I can't afford to lose it. But I also can't afford to play guessing games about what I'm supposed to—" "You're not doing anything wrong." She stopped, stared at him. "Then why are you here?" she asked. "Good question." Kyle looked at the lunchbox on her desk. The smell was different tonight. Something with ginger. Something that made him think of his wife cooking in their apartment before Nari was born, before everything got complicated and violent. "What are you eating?" he asked. Iris blinked at the subject change. Ginger pork, leftover rice, it's nothing fancy." "It smells like my wife used to cook." The words came out before he could stop them. Iris's expression softened. I'm sorry. About your wife. I heard she... I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't know her. Still. They stood there in awkward silence. Finally, Iris picked up her lunchbox and held it out. Do you want some? There's enough. Kale stared at the offered container. When was the last time someone had offered to share food with him? Not at a business dinner, not at some carefully orchestrated social event, just shared food because there was enough and he looked hungry. He started. It's fine, Iris said. I made too much anyway. There's a convenience store downstairs that sells disposable chopsticks if you... I know where the chopsticks are. He took the lunchbox from her hands. Their fingers brushed for half a second. Iris pulled back quickly. Professional distance, appropriate boundaries. Kale looked down at the food, rice mixed with thin slices of pork and brown sauce, ginger and garlic, sesame seeds sprinkled on top, simple and perfect. He picked up Iris's chopsticks, the ones she'd been using, and took a bite. The taste exploded across his tongue. Not fancy, not expensive, just real. Made by someone who understood that food could be memory and comfort and love all mixed together. It's good, he said. Iris smiled slightly. My grandmother's recipe. She taught me before... She stopped. She taught me. Kyle took another bite, then handed the box back. Thank you. You're welcome. He should leave. Go back to his office. Maintain the distance between employer and employee, between the man who ran an empire and the girl who ate cheap noodles at her desk. Instead, he asked, Why did you come to Seoul? Iris hesitated. Fresh start. Somewhere my debts couldn't follow me as easily. Are they following you? Always. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Debt doesn't forget. No, Kale agreed. It doesn't. Another silence. Less awkward this time. Your daughter, Iris said quietly. Nari, she's special. I know. Does she talk to you? At home? The question hit harder than it should have. Not much? She talks to her drawings. What? Iris pulled open her desk drawer and carefully lifted out a stack of papers. Crayon drawings. At least 20 of them. She's been leaving these on my desk every morning, Iris said. At first I thought maybe she was just bored. But look. She spread several drawings across the desk. Each one told a story. A small figure alone in a big house. The same figure reaching for a larger figure who was always turned away. Dark colors. Heavy lines. The visual vocabulary of a child processing grief she couldn't articulate. Then the recent drawings. The ones where a third figure appeared. Yellow hair, always smiling. In those drawings, the small figure was holding hands with the yellow-haired figure. The dark colors were lighter. There were suns. There were flowers. Kale stared at the progression. She's talking, Iris said softly. Just not with words. She's telling me she's lonely, that she misses her mother, that she wants... What? Kyle's voice came out rougher than he intended. What does she want? Iris met his eyes. She wants someone to see her, not the sad little girl, not the motherless child, just Nari, a person who exists. The truth of it hit Kyle like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on keeping his daughter safe, armed security, background check nanny, private school with bulletproof glass, that he'd forgotten to see her as anything except something fragile that needed protecting. I don't know how to do this, he said. The admission felt like swallowing broken glass. Do what? Be her father without her mother. Kyle looked at the drawings again. My wife knew how to reach her, knew what she needed. I keep her alive. That's all I know how to do. Iris was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, That's not nothing, Mr. Ryu. Keeping someone alive when everything wants to break them. That's everything. Something in Kyle's chest cracked open. He looked at this young woman who barely knew him, who had her own grief and debts and reasons to be bitter. But there was no bitterness in her face, just understanding. Thank you, he said again. For what? For seeing my daughter. Iris's expression softened. She makes it easy. Kyle knew he should leave now. End this conversation before it went somewhere dangerous. Before he said something stupid like asking Iris to come to the mansion, to have dinner with him and Nari, to fill the emptiness with burnt garlic and cheap noodles and the sound of his daughter laughing. Before he admitted that the smell of her cooking was the only thing in his life that felt real anymore. He took a step back. I'll let you finish your work. Mr. Ryu. He stopped. Iris picked up one of Nari's drawings, the one with 3 figures holding hands around a kitchen table. She wants this, Iris said, holding up the picture. I don't know if it's possible in your world, but she wants it. And I think... She paused. I think maybe you do too. The words hung in the air between them. Kale looked at the drawing, at the impossible thing his daughter had created with crayons and hope. Good night, Miss Vale, he said. Then he walked away before he could do something reckless, like telling her she was right. Kyle didn't sleep that night. He stood in his home office watching the city sprawl beneath him and thought about burnt garlic and crayon drawings and the way Iris had looked at him like he was human instead of a monster. At 3 a.m., his phone rang. Jin. We have a situation. Kyle's blood went cold. Nari is fine. But you need to see this. Jin sent a photograph. Kyle opened it. Lucien Seo stood outside the building that housed Kyle's office tower. Beside him, Iris Vale, leaving work late, walking alone toward the subway station. The photo was taken from across the street. Professional surveillance, the timestamp showed it was from tonight, Friday night. About 30 minutes after Kyle had left Iris at her desk, another message arrived. He knows about her, about the girl spending time with your daughter. He's watching. Kyle stared at the photograph until his vision blurred. Lucien Seo was sending a message, a very clear one. I found your weakness. Now what are you going to do about it? Kyle's hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. He had 2 choices. Send Iris away, fire her, remove her from his life and Nari's life before Lucien could use her as leverage, or bring her deeper into the darkness and pray he could keep her alive in it. Both choices felt like drowning. His phone rang again. Different number. Unknown. Kale answered. Kale. Lucien's voice was smooth, almost friendly. Working late? What do you want? Just checking in, making sure we're still friends. We're not friends. No, Lucien agreed. But we have an understanding. We respect each other's territories. We don't interfere in each other's business. We keep the peace. Get to the point. I heard you hired an American girl, very pretty, very young, spending quite a bit of time with your daughter. Kale said nothing. I also heard, Lucien continued, that you've been distracted lately, leaving the office early, taking personal calls during business hours. Very unlike you. I'm warning you once. No warnings needed, my friend. I'm just observing, noticing changes. You understand how it is in our world. Changes make people nervous, make them wonder if the old agreements still hold. They hold. Good. That's very good. Lucien paused. Give my regards to your daughter and to Miss Vale. The line went dead. Kale stood there with the phone in his hand, rage and fear fighting for control. Then he made a decision. He wasn't sending Iris away. He was bringing her closer, because the only way to protect something in his world was to make it part of the fortress, to surround it with walls and weapons and men who would die before letting anything through. It was the most selfish, most reckless thing he could do. But watching his daughter come alive for the first time in 2 years had reminded him of something he'd forgotten. Some things were worth burning the world to protect. He dialed Jin. I need a security team assigned to Iris Vale, 24-hour protection. She doesn't know about it. Keep it invisible. Sir, if you're escalating with Seo... I'm not escalating. I'm making sure he understands that if he touches her, I'll erase him and everyone he loves from existence. Jin was silent. Then, understood. Kale ended the call. He looked at the photograph again. Iris walking alone in the dark, unaware she'd just become the most dangerous piece on a board that had been in play for 20 years. Somewhere in the mansion, Nari was probably awake, probably sitting in the blue moonlight holding her mother's rabbit and drawing pictures of a yellow-haired woman who'd shown her kindness. And Kyle Minjae Ryu, the man who'd built an empire on blood and fear, admitted the truth he'd been avoiding since that first night. He'd smelled burnt garlic and remembered what it felt like to be human. He was falling, not for beauty, not for innocence, but for the woman who carried warmth into cold places and made his daughter believe in suns again. God help them all. Monday morning arrived with frost on the windows and tension crackling through the 78th floor like static electricity before a lightning strike. Iris noticed it immediately. The usual morning chaos, assistants rushing between departments, phones ringing, the coffee machine gurgling in the break room, had been replaced by something heavier. People moved quietly, spoke in whispers, avoided eye contact. And there were new faces, men in dark suits positioned at intervals throughout the floor. Not obviously armed, but carrying themselves with the coiled readiness of people who knew how to hurt efficiently. They didn't interact with anyone, just watched. Iris set her bag down at her desk and tried to ignore the crawling sensation between her shoulder blades. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Don't be alarmed by the additional security. Standard precaution. K. She stared at the message, reread it, then looked toward Khalil's office. He stood at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, silhouetted against the morning light. Even from this distance, she could see the rigid set of his shoulders, the tension in his jaw. Something had changed over the weekend. Something bad. Iris deleted the text and turned on her computer. Whatever was happening, it wasn't her business. She was just the assistant. The girl who showed up, did her work, and went home to her tiny apartment in Itaewon, where the walls were thin and the neighbors fought in 3 different languages. Except Nari's drawings were still in her desk drawer. Except she'd spent most of Sunday thinking about the way Kyle had looked at her, when he'd said, I don't know how to be her father without her mother. Except she'd eaten the leftover ginger pork for breakfast and remembered the expression on his face when he'd tasted it, like someone had reached inside his chest and grabbed something he'd thought was dead. Iris opened her email and tried to focus on work. It lasted approximately 40 minutes. Then Kale's office door opened and he walked out, heading directly toward her desk. Iris sat up straighter. Mr. Ryu, good morning. My office. Now. He didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked back. Iris exchanged a glance with one of the nearby assistants, a Korean woman named Minji, who'd been friendly during Iris's first week. Minji's expression was carefully blank, but her eyes said, good luck. Iris stood and followed Kyle into his office. He closed the door behind her. The click of the latch sounded unnaturally loud. Sit, he said. She sat. Kyle remained standing. He looked like he hadn't slept. His suit was immaculate as always, but there were shadows under his eyes and a tightness around his mouth that spoke of exhaustion held at bay through sheer willpower. How much do you know about what I do? He asked. The question caught her off guard. You run a shipping company, import-export logistics. That's the surface. I'm aware there's probably more to it. I'm not naive, Mr. Ryu. Men don't need this much security for legitimate shipping. A ghost of something, maybe respect, maybe amusement, flickered across his face. No, they don't. He walked to the window, stood with his back to her, looking out at Seoul stretched beneath them. I'm telling you this because you need to understand the danger you're in, Kyle said. There are people who would use you to get to me, people who have already noticed that my daughter has taken an interest in you, that I've... He stopped, started again. That there's been a change in routine. Iris's stomach tightened. What kind of danger? The kind where you disappear and your body is found in the Han River 3 weeks later. The bluntness of it stole her breath. Kale turned to face her. I've assigned security to you. You won't see them most of the time, but they're there. You don't go anywhere alone. You don't talk to strangers. You don't... Wait, Iris stood. You're assigning me security without asking me? This isn't a negotiation. Like hell it isn't. Anger spiked through her fear. You don't get to make decisions about my life just because... Because what? Because I'm your boss? Because I have the resources to keep you alive? Because you feel guilty? The words burst out of her. Your daughter likes me. That makes you feel something you haven't felt in years. So now you're trying to control the situation like you control everything else in your life. But I'm not one of your assets, Mr. Ryu. I'm a person, and I get to decide what risks I take. Silence dropped between them like a guillotine blade. Kale stared at her, really looked at her. Not as an employee, not as a problem to solve, As someone who'd just said the truth out loud and wasn't backing down. "You're right," he said quietly. Iris blinked. "What?" "You're right. I am trying to control this because control is the only thing I understand." He moved closer, stopping a few feet away. "But you're wrong about one thing. This isn't guilt. Guilt is what I feel when I kill someone who probably deserved it. This is—" He stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. "This is fear," he finished. "Real fear. The kind I haven't felt since my wife was dying and I couldn't do anything except watch. I'm afraid that my world is going to destroy you, and my daughter will watch it happen. And she'll never draw another son again." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something open in Iris's chest. She took a breath, let it out slowly. "Who's threatening me?"
"His name is Lucien Co. He runs—" Kale paused. "He runs an organization similar to mine. We have an understanding, but understandings only last as long as both parties respect boundaries. And he thinks you're crossing a boundary. He thinks I'm distracted, weak. He's testing to see if that's true." "Is it?" Iris asked. Kale's eyes met hers, dark, exhausted, honest. "Yes." The admission hung in the air between them.
Iris thought about her tiny apartment, her maxed-out credit cards, the collection agencies that called at 2 a.m. because time zones meant nothing to debt. She thought about how desperately she needed this job, how easy it would be to walk away from this conversation and pretend she hadn't heard any of it. Then she thought about Nari's drawings, about the way the little girl's face had lit up when Iris had written, "I'll be here tomorrow" on that first picture. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Kael looked surprised. "You're not quitting?" "Should I be? Most people would run." "I'm not most people." Iris crossed her arms. "And I don't run from things that scare me. Learned that the hard way." Something shifted in Kael's expression, softened, almost imperceptibly. "The security stays," he said. "Non-negotiable. Beyond that, just be careful. Don't talk about your work. Don't mention Nari. Don't exist too loudly. Got it?" "Iris?" The use of her first name stopped her. "Thank you," Kael said. "For what?" "For not running." She looked at him, really looked at him, saw the fear he'd admitted to, saw the exhaustion, saw a man who'd built an empire on violence and control trying desperately to protect something soft in a world made of knives. "Your daughter asked me to visit," Iris said. "At your house. Is that safe?" Kael was quiet for a long moment, then, "My house is the safest place in Seoul, if you're willing to come." "When?" "Tonight. I'll have a car pick you up after work." Iris nodded. Okay. They stood there awkwardly. Boss and employee, two people who'd just crossed a line neither of them could uncross. Finally, Iris turned toward the door. "Iris," Kael said again. She looked back. "The ginger pork," he said. It was good. Really good. A small smile tugged at her mouth. "I'll make it again sometime." "I'd like that." She left before the moment could get any more complicated. But as she sat back down at her desk, she could feel the weight of eyes on her. The security team, the other assistants, the whole 78th floor quietly wondering what had just happened in that office. Iris opened her email and pretended everything was normal. It wasn't. Nothing was normal anymore. The car that picked up Iris at 7 p.m. was a black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver who didn't make conversation. She sat in the back seat watching Seoul blur past. Neon signs, street vendors, the organized chaos of a city that never quite stopped moving. Her hands were sweating. She wiped them on her jeans and tried to calm her racing heart. This was stupid. Going to her boss's house. Getting involved with a man who'd basically admitted he was a criminal. Putting herself in the crosshairs of whatever war was brewing between him and this Lucien Co person. But then she thought about Nari, about those drawings, about a 6-year-old girl who'd stopped talking after her mother died and was just starting to remember what it felt like to be seen. Iris couldn't walk away from that. The car turned into a neighborhood that made her apartment building look like a condemned shack. Massive houses set back from the road, security gates, manicured gardens even in winter. They stopped in front of a gate that looked like it cost more than Iris's entire student loan debt. The driver spoke into an intercom. The gate swung open. The house that appeared made Iris's breath catch. It was massive, all glass and steel and sharp modern lines, lit from within so it glowed against the dark sky like something from a science fiction movie. Beautiful and cold and utterly intimidating. The car stopped at the front entrance. "Miss Vale," the driver said, his first words of the entire trip. "Mr. Ryu is waiting inside." Iris got out. The front door opened before she could knock. Kyle stood there, and for a moment Iris didn't recognize him. He changed out of his suit, wore dark jeans and a simple black sweater. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked younger, more human, more dangerous somehow. "You came," he said. "I said I would. People say a lot of things. I'm not people." That almost smile flickered across his face again. "No, you're not." He stepped aside. Iris walked past him into a foyer that could have held her entire apartment twice over. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than she'd earned in 5 years. "Nari's in the kitchen," Kyle said, closing the door. "She's been waiting since you texted that you were coming." "You told her I was visiting?" "She asked. I don't lie to her." Iris followed him through the house. Every room they passed was pristine, untouched, like a museum instead of a home where people actually lived. Then they reached the kitchen, and everything changed. The kitchen was huge, restaurant-grade appliances, marble countertops, an island bigger than Iris's bedroom. But what caught her attention was the small figure sitting at that massive island, surrounded by crayons and paper. Nari looked up, her face transformed. "Miss Vale!" The child slid off her chair and ran across the kitchen, stopped a few feet away, suddenly shy. Iris crouched down to her level. "Hi, Nari. Thank you for inviting me to your house. Do you want to see my room?" "I'd love to." Nari grabbed Iris's hand, just grabbed it, like it was the most natural thing in the world, and started pulling her toward the doorway. Iris glanced back at Kyle. He stood frozen, staring at their joined hands with an expression that looked like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. "Is it okay?" Iris asked. Kyle nodded, couldn't seem to form words. Nari pulled Iris out of the kitchen and up a curved staircase that belonged in a palace. They walked down a hallway lined with closed doors until Nari stopped at one painted pale blue. "This is mine," she announced. The room inside was beautiful. Large windows overlooking the garden, a canopy bed with soft white curtains, shelves full of books and toys. Everything a child could want, everything except warmth. It felt like a room from a catalog, perfect and untouched and somehow sad. Nari climbed onto her bed and patted the space beside her. Iris sat down carefully. "I made you something," Nari said. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper, handed it to Iris with both hands, like it was precious. Iris unfolded it carefully. A crayon drawing, 3 figures standing in a kitchen, 1 tall figure in black, 1 small figure, 1 figure with yellow hair wearing an apron. Above them, Nari had drawn a sun, bright yellow, smiling, and beneath the drawing, in careful English letters, "My family." Iris's throat tightened. "Nari, what is it okay?" The child's voice was small, worried. "That I drew you? It's more than okay. It's beautiful. Appa said you might not want to be in my pictures, because we just met, but I wanted—" Nari stopped, looked down at her hands. "I wanted you here." Something inside Iris cracked wide open. She set the drawing aside and pulled Nari into a gentle hug. The child melted into her, small and warm and trusting in a way that made Iris want to fight the entire world to keep her safe. "I want to be here too," Iris whispered. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Nari pulled back. "Can you teach me to cook, like you do? With the garlic?" Iris smiled. "Right now?" Nari nodded enthusiastically. "Does your dad know how to cook?" "No, he orders everything. It tastes like nothing." Iris laughed. "Okay, let's go ask him if it's all right." They went back downstairs holding hands. Kyle was still in the kitchen, standing at the island like he hadn't moved. When he saw them, something in his expression shifted. "Appa," Nari said, "can Miss Vale teach me to cook?" Kale looked at Iris. "You don't have to." "I want to," Iris said. If you're okay with it. He seemed lost. Yes, of course.
Do you have ingredients? Garlic, sesame oil, gochugaru? I have no idea what's in my kitchen. Iris smiled. Then let's find out.
Over the next hour, the sterile kitchen transformed. Iris found basic ingredients, some in the pantry, some in a refrigerator that was mostly empty except for expensive wines and bottled water. She improvised, made do, taught Nari how to press garlic cloves with the flat of a knife, how to heat oil until it shimmered, how to listen for the sizzle that meant the temperature was right. Kale watched from across the island, not participating but not leaving either.
Why do we burn the garlic a little? Nari asked.
Because that's where the flavor hides, Iris explained.
See how it turns golden brown at the edges? That's the good part. That's what makes it taste like home. Nari leaned over the pan, breathing in the scent. It smells like your lunchbox. That's because I use the same trick. Can you teach me more recipes? As many as you want. Kael's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened.
I need to take this, he said quietly. I'll be in my office. He left without another word. Iris and Nari continued cooking. They made simple fried rice, egg, garlic, sesame oil, whatever vegetables Iris could find in the largely empty refrigerator. It wasn't fancy, but it was real, made with hands that cared instead of ordered and delivered. When it was done, they sat at the kitchen island, Iris, Nari, and 2 bowls of steaming rice. Should we wait for your dad? Iris asked. Nari shook her head. He won't eat with me. He never does. The casual way she said it broke Iris's heart. They ate together in comfortable silence. Nari kept glancing at Iris like she was afraid she might disappear if she looked away too long. Miss Vale? Nari said softly. You can call me Iris if you want. Iris. Nari tested the name. Are you going to leave? Like everyone else? The question hit like a punch. I'm not planning to, Iris said carefully. But I can't promise nothing will ever change. That's not how life works. Mama promised she wouldn't leave, but she did. Iris set down her chopsticks. Your mama didn't want to leave you. Sometimes things happen that we can't control, but that doesn't mean she didn't love you more than anything in the world. How do you know? Because I lost my parents too, in a car accident when I was 17, and even though they're gone, I know they loved me. Love doesn't disappear just because people do. Nari looked at her with eyes too old for a 6-year-old. Does it hurt less? When you get older? Iris thought about her grandmother, about medical bills and late-night phone calls, and the moment she'd realized she was completely alone in the world. No, she said honestly. It doesn't hurt less. But you get better at carrying it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find people who help you carry it, so it doesn't feel so heavy all the time. Will you help me carry it? The question was so simple, so devastating. Yes, Iris whispered. I will. Nari smiled, really smiled, the kind of smile that belonged on a child's face instead of the solemn mask she usually wore. They finished eating, cleaned up together. Nari chattered about school, about a book she was reading, about the garden outside where flowers would bloom in spring. For a little while, the massive empty house felt like a home. Then Kael's office door opened. He walked back into the kitchen and stopped dead. The 3 of them, Iris, Nari, and the bowls of food, looked like something from another life, something he'd lost and forgotten could exist. Appa, Nari said, we made food. Do you want some? Kael looked at Iris. She stood. I should probably go. It's getting late. No. The word came out too sharp. Kael softened his tone. Stay, please. There's something I need to tell you. The seriousness in his voice made Iris's stomach drop. Nari seemed to sense the shift. Can I watch TV in the den? Yes, Kael said. 30 minutes. Nari slid off her chair, gave Iris a quick hug, and disappeared toward another part of the house. Iris and Kael stood alone in the kitchen that still smelled like burnt garlic and sesame oil. What's wrong? Iris asked. Kael pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. Iris stared at the image. It was her. Leaving the office building Friday night and standing across the street, watching her, was a man in an expensive suit with silver hair and a smile that looked like it belonged on a shark. That's Lucien Seo, Kael said. The photo was taken 3 days ago. Iris's blood went cold. He was following me? Watching, learning your patterns, building a profile. Why? Because he wants to know if you matter to me. The words hung between them. Do I? Iris asked quietly. Matter to you? Kael looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, he let her see everything. The fear, the exhaustion, the desperate need for something real in a life built on lies. Yes, he said. You matter. You and Nari. You're the only things that have mattered in years. Iris should run. Should get out of this house, quit her job, disappear into the millions of people in Seoul, and never look back. Instead, she asked, what do we do? The we seemed to hit Kael harder than anything else. I don't know, he admitted. Every option ends with someone getting hurt. If I send you away, Nari loses the first person she's connected with since her mother died. If you stay, you become a target. There's no good answer. Then let me decide. Iris. Yes. No. Listen. She moved closer to him. I've spent 2 years running from debt collectors and memories and everything that hurt. I'm tired of running, so let me make this choice. Let me decide if staying is worth the risk. You don't understand what you're asking. Lucien doesn't make threats. He makes examples. If he decides you're a vulnerability, then you'll protect me. Like you said, that's what all the security is for, right? Security can fail. So can everything else. Hearts fail, cars fail, promises fail. That doesn't mean we stop trying. Kael stared at her. Why? Why would you risk this? Iris thought about Nari's drawing, about my family written in careful letters, about the way the little girl had looked at her like she was something precious instead of something broken. Because your daughter needs someone who isn't afraid to stay, Iris said. And maybe you do too. The confession sat between them like an exposed wire. Kael stepped closer. They were inches apart now, close enough that Iris could see the silver threading through his dark hair, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him. If you stay, he said quietly, everything changes. No more pretending this is just a job. No more boundaries. You become part of this, part of my world, and my world destroys beautiful things. I'm not that beautiful. You are to me. The words cracked something open in both of them. Kael lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her face, gentle, almost reverent. I haven't felt this terrified in 20 years, he whispered. Good, Iris said. That means it's real. They stood there in the kitchen that smelled like burnt garlic and home, balanced on the knife's edge between before and after. Then Kael's phone rang. The sound shattered the moment. He pulled back, checking the screen. His face went pale. What? Iris asked. It's Jin. Something's wrong. He answered. Talk to me. Iris couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Kael's expression shift from concern to rage to something that looked like horror. When? He demanded. How many casualties? No. Lock down everything. Full security protocols. Nobody in or out until I... Yes, I'm coming now. He ended the call. What happened? Iris asked. Kael looked at her with eyes that had gone cold. Dead. The human warmth that had been there moments ago had vanished behind walls he'd built from necessity and violence. One of my warehouses, down by the harbor. There was an explosion. 3 dead. 7 injured. Oh my God, it wasn't an accident. Kael's voice was flat, emotionless. Lucien sent a message. He's declaring war. The words fell like stones into dark water. You need to leave, Kael said. Now, I'll have a driver take you home. Pack a bag. My security team will move you to a safe house until this is over. A safe house? For how long? However long it takes. Kael, this isn't a discussion. He was already moving, pulling out his phone, typing rapid messages. Jin will coordinate everything. You'll be protected. You'll be safe. What about Nari? She stays here. This house is a fortress. And you? Kael stopped, looked at her. I do what I always do. I go to war. The finality in his voice terrified her more than the news about the warehouse.
Let me help, Iris said. There has to be something. There is. You stay alive. That's how you help. He was shutting down, shutting her out, becoming the cold, controlled thing that ruled an empire instead of the man who'd touched her face like she was something precious. Don't do this, Iris said. Don't push me away because you're scared. I'm not scared. I'm practical. People around me die, Iris. That's the pattern. My parents, my wife. 17 men who worked for me over the years. Everyone I care about ends up in the ground. So, you're just going to lock me away? Make the decision for me? Yes. The certainty in that one word hurt more than any violence could. You're a coward, Iris said. Kale's eyes flashed. Excuse me? You heard me. You talk about protecting people, about keeping them safe. But really, you're just too afraid to let anyone close enough to hurt you, so you control everything, lock everything down, make sure nobody can reach you. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? You won't even eat dinner with your daughter because you're so terrified of failing her. You build walls and call it love. You push people away and call it protection. I'm trying to keep you alive. No. You're trying to keep yourself from feeling anything, because feeling things means you might lose them, and you can't control loss, so you control everything else instead. They stood there breathing hard, anger and fear and desperate honesty crackling between them. Kale's phone buzzed again. More messages, more disasters requiring his attention. He looked at her one more time. The car will be here in 10 minutes. Say goodbye to Nari. Then he walked away. Iris stood in the kitchen that had felt like home 30 minutes ago and now felt like a beautiful cage. She found Nari in the den, curled up on a massive couch, watching cartoons in Korean. I have to go, Iris said gently. Nari's face fell. Already? Something came up, but I'll see you soon. Promise? Iris looked at this small, solemn child who'd already lost too much, who was asking for something simple and impossible, a promise that people would stay. I promise, Iris said. No matter what happens, I'll come back. Nari hugged her tight. Thank you for teaching me to cook. Thank you for letting me. The drive back to her apartment was silent. Different driver, same black Mercedes, same tinted windows hiding her from the world. Iris watched Seoul blur past and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 3 hours. She'd gone from assistant to house guest to target to something she didn't have a name for. And Kale had gone from controlled boss to vulnerable man to shut down soldier in the space of a phone call. When she got to her apartment building, the driver insisted on escorting her to her door, checked the hallway, waited while she locked herself inside. Through her tiny window, Iris could see 2 more men taking up positions, one across the street, one at the building entrance. She was being protected. She was being controlled. She wasn't sure there was a difference anymore. Iris pulled out her phone, started to text Kyle, stopped, started again. Finally settled on, Your daughter thinks we're family. The drawing says so. Are you going to prove her wrong? She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came 2 minutes later. I'm trying to keep her from planning your funeral. Iris stared at the message, at the brutal honesty wrapped in cruelty, wrapped in fear. She typed, Then stop treating me like I'm already dead. No response. Iris set her phone down and looked around her apartment, at the threadbare furniture, at the stack of bills on her counter, at the life she'd built from scraps and determination. Tomorrow, men would come and move her to a safe house, lock her away, keep her alive but isolated. Tomorrow she'd become another thing for Kyle to control and protect and keep at arm's length. Tomorrow, the choice would be taken from her hands. But tonight she was still free. Iris made a decision. She grabbed her laptop and opened it, started searching, news sites, social media, anything about an explosion at Seoul Harbor. Found it on a breaking news site. Warehouse fire, suspected gang violence, 3 confirmed dead. Then she dug deeper, found forum posts, underground websites that talked about the real Seoul, the one hidden beneath neon and respectability. Names started appearing. Lucien Seo, Kael Ryu, territory disputes, power struggles, a shadow war that had been building for months while the daylight world remained oblivious. Iris read everything, absorbed it, let the truth of Kael's world sink in. He wasn't exaggerating. This was real. The danger was real. People died in this world, disappeared, became statistics in news articles that everyone forgot within a week.
She should be terrified. She was terrified. But she was also angry. Angry at Lucien Seo for making a child a pawn. Angry at Kael for pushing her away when she'd offered to stay. Angry at a world where love was a weakness instead of a strength. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Iris answered. Hello? Miss Vale. The voice was smooth, cultured, polite. My name is Lucien Seo. I believe we haven't been formally introduced. Every drop of blood in Iris's body turned to ice. How did you get this number? I get everything I want, Miss Vale. That's how this works. But I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to offer you a choice. I'm not interested in anything you... Kael is going to lock you away, Lucien interrupted. Put you in a safe house. Keep you isolated. He'll call it protection, but really it's a prison. You'll sit in a windowless room for weeks, maybe months, while he and I settle our differences. And when it's over, if you're still alive, he'll tell you it was for your own good. What's your point? My point is that you have another option. Walk away. Tonight. Leave Seoul. Go back to America. I'll even pay off your debts, all of them. Consider it a gift. In exchange for what? Nothing. Just leave. Disappear. Let Kyle Ryu fight his war without distractions. Iris's hand tightened on the phone. You think I'm a distraction? I think you're a vulnerability, and Kael knows it. That's why he's afraid. That's why he's pushing you away. Because deep down, he knows keeping you close will get you killed. You're wrong. Am I? Then why are you sitting alone in your apartment while he's preparing for war? Why didn't he ask you to stay? Why is he sending you to a safe house instead of keeping you beside him where you'd actually be safest? The questions hit like arrows, finding their marks. Because he doesn't trust himself around you, Lucien continued. Because he's falling in love with you, and it terrifies him. Because in his world, love means leverage, and he can't protect you if someone decides to use you against him. This conversation is over. Think about my offer, Miss Vale. You have until morning. After that, all bets are off. The line went dead. Iris sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Outside, the security team kept watch. Across the city, Kael was preparing for war. And somewhere in a mansion made of glass and ghosts, a 6-year-old girl was probably drawing another picture of a family that didn't exist yet. Iris looked at her packed bag sitting by the door, at her laptop still displaying articles about warehouse explosions and gang violence, at the life she was supposed to abandon for safety. Then she made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to the safe house. She wasn't leaving Seoul. And she sure as hell wasn't running away. If Kael Ryu wanted to protect her, he was going to have to do it while she stood right beside him. Because Nari's drawing said family. And family didn't hide when things got dangerous. Family fought. Iris didn't sleep. She sat on her apartment floor with her laptop balanced on her knees, reading everything she could find about territorial wars in Seoul's underworld, about how these things ended, about the bodies that washed up in the Han River when negotiations failed. At 4 a.m., her phone buzzed. A message from the security team leader, a man named Park, who had granite for a face and spoke in monosyllables. Car arrives 6 a.m. Be ready. Iris stared at the message, typed a response, deleted it, typed again. I'm not going. The reply came 30 seconds later. Not your decision. Actually, it is. I quit. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Mr. Ryu won't accept your resignation. He doesn't have a choice. I'm an American citizen. I can leave whenever I want. You can try. The implied threat hung in the air like smoke. Iris set her phone down and looked at her packed bag. At the door. At the window where she could see Park's silhouette across the street, backlit by a convenience store sign. She'd meant what she'd texted Kael. She wasn't going to hide. But she also wasn't stupid enough to think she could just walk out of here unnoticed. So she did the only thing she could think of. She called the one person in Seoul who might actually help her. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered in Korean accented English. Do you know what time it is? Minji, Iris said. I need your help. Her coworker, the friendly assistant who'd given her a sympathetic look yesterday, went silent. This is about Mr. Ryu, Minji said finally. Not a question. Yes. You're in trouble. Yes. A long pause. Iris could hear traffic in the background. Minji lived somewhere in Gangnam, shared an apartment with 3 other girls to afford the rent. What do you need? Minji asked. A way out of my apartment without the security team seeing me. Jesus, Iris, please. I can't explain everything, but I'm not in danger from Mr. Ryu. I'm trying to help him, and his daughter. But his people won't let me leave. Another pause, then, there's a service entrance. Back of your building, goes through the laundry room in the basement. It exits onto the side street. How do you know that? I lived in that building 2 years ago. Same floor as you, actually. Used that exit when my ex wouldn't stop showing up at my front door. Relief flooded through Iris. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If Mr. Ryu finds out I helped you, he won't, I promise. You can't promise that, but good luck. Whatever you're doing, I hope it's worth it. Minji hung up. Iris moved quickly, changed into dark clothes, grabbed her phone, wallet, and the drawing Nari had made. Left everything else. She slipped out of her apartment at 5:17 a.m. while Seoul was still caught between night and morning. The hallway was empty. She took the stairs instead of the elevator, quieter, less predictable. Down 6 flights to the basement level. The laundry room smelled like detergent and mildew. Industrial washers lined one wall, and there, exactly where Minji had said, was a metal door with a push-bar exit. Iris pressed against it gently. It opened onto a narrow alley choked with garbage bins and restaurant vents. She slipped through and let the door close behind her. The morning air hit her face, cold, sharp, smelling faintly of fish and exhaust. She walked quickly toward the main street, pulling her hood up, keeping her head down. Behind her, Park and his team were probably still watching her front entrance. They'd realized she was gone eventually, but by then... Iris's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Kyle. Her thumb hovered over the decline button. Then she answered. Where are you? His voice was cold, controlled, furious. How did you... Motion sensors in your apartment. You left 3 minutes ago. Where the hell are you going? Iris kept walking. To help you. By running away from the security I assigned to keep you alive? I'm not running away. I'm running toward something. Iris, no. Listen to me. You don't get to make all the decisions. You don't get to lock me up and call it protection. If you want me in your life, in Nari's life, then you have to let me choose how I show up. Silence. She could hear him breathing, could picture him standing in his office with that terrible controlled rage building behind his eyes. What are you planning? He asked quietly. I'm going to talk to Lucian Seo. Absolutely not. He called me last night, offered me a deal, money to leave Seoul, to disappear. She heard something break in the background. Glass, maybe, or ceramic. He contacted you directly? Kale's voice had gone lethal. In your apartment? Yes. When? Around midnight. More silence. When Kyle spoke again, his voice was so cold it could have flash-frozen blood. He got past my security. Got your private number. Called you in what should have been a protected location. Each word came out like a bullet. Do you understand what that means? It means your security has holes. It means someone on my team is feeding him information. The implication hit Iris like a physical blow. A traitor. Inside Kyle's organization. All the more reason for me to talk to him, Iris said. He thinks I'm weak. A distraction. I can use that. Make him underestimate you. Or he'll kill you the moment you walk through his door. He won't. I'm more valuable alive, as leverage. That's not the reassurance you think it is. Iris turned a corner. The street was getting busier now. Early morning commuters heading to subway stations, vendors setting up food carts. She could disappear into the crowd if she needed to. Where are you meeting him? Kyle demanded. I don't know yet. I haven't called him back. Don't. Don't call him. Don't go anywhere near him. Just... Kale stopped. When he spoke again, his voice had fractured. Please, Iris, just come back. We'll figure this out together. The please nearly broke her. I can't, she said, because you won't let me actually help. You'll put me in a room and tell me it's for my own good. And Nari will grow up thinking love means locking people away when things get hard. That's not fair. Isn't it? Kale was quiet for a long moment. If you do this, if you contact Lucian, everything changes. You become part of this war. There's no going back. I know. People will die, Iris. Maybe you, maybe me, definitely others. Is that something you can live with? Iris thought about Nari's drawing, about my family written in careful letters, about a 6-year-old girl who'd already lost one mother and was asking the universe for another. Yes, she said. I can live with it. Can you? The question hung in the air like a blade. Finally, Kale said, I'll have Jin send you Lucien's contact information. And a tracker. You wear it at all times, non-negotiable. Okay? And Iris? Yeah? If he touches you, if he so much as looks at you wrong, I will burn his entire empire to ash and scatter it across the Han River. The viciousness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt like a promise. I'll be careful, Iris said. She hung up before he could argue further. 3 minutes later, a message arrived from Jin. A phone number, an address, some restaurant in Gangnam, and instructions for picking up the tracker from a drop location. Iris memorized everything. Then she texted the number Lucien had called from. You wanted to meet. Let's meet. Today, noon, public place of my choosing. The response came almost immediately. Bold. I like it. Send me the location. Iris thought carefully. Somewhere public enough that Lucien couldn't just disappear her, somewhere she could control. She sent him the name of a cafe near Gyeongbokgung Palace. Tourist area. Crowded. Cameras everywhere. See you at noon, Miss Vale? Iris pocketed her phone and kept walking. She had 6 hours to prepare for the most dangerous conversation of her life. Bang! The cafe was exactly what she'd hoped for. Glass walls, dozens of customers, a clear view of the street. Iris arrived 30 minutes early and took a table near the back corner where she could watch both entrances. She'd picked up the tracker from Jin's drop location, a tiny device that looked like a decorative button. She'd sewn it into the inner seam of her jacket where it would be nearly impossible to find without a thorough search. Now she waited. Ordered coffee she didn't drink. Watched tourists take photos with the palace in the background. Tried to calm her racing heart. At 11:58, Lucien So walked through the front door. He was exactly what she'd expected and nothing like what she'd imagined. Late 40s, expensive suit tailored to perfection, silver hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. He moved like someone who'd never been afraid of anything in his life. 2 men flanked him, bodyguards obviously. They stayed near the entrance while Lucien approached her table alone. Miss Vale. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Thank you for meeting me. Mr. Seo. He sat across from her without asking permission, gestured to a server who materialized instantly, ordered something in Korean, then turned his full attention to Iris. You're braver than I expected, he said. Most people don't accept invitations from me. Most people don't have anything you want. True. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. You're very different from what I imagined. Kael usually prefers a certain type. What type is that? Polished, sophisticated. The kind of woman who looks good at charity galas and knows when to keep her mouth shut. Sounds boring. Lucien laughed, actual genuine amusement. Yes, it does, which is why you're so interesting. You're not polished, not sophisticated. You eat cheap noodles at your desk and wear thrift store sweaters. You're completely wrong for his world. And yet here I am. Here you are. His coffee arrived. He took a sip, watching her over the rim. So, you didn't take my offer. The money, the clean exit. Why? Because running away doesn't solve anything. It just postpones the problem. Spoken like someone who's never actually been hunted. Maybe. But I'm not interested in your money, Mr. Seo. I'm interested in why you're threatening a 6-year-old child. Something flickered across Lucien's face. Not quite shame, more like irritation at being called out. I'm not threatening the child, he said. I'm threatening her father. By using her, by making her a target, that's the same thing. In this world, Miss Vale, everyone is a target. The only question is whether you're valuable enough to protect. And you think Nari isn't valuable enough. I think Kael has lost his edge. He used to be sharp, focused, ruthless. Now he's distracted, soft, making mistakes. That warehouse that exploded? That was his mistake. Inadequate security, sloppy protocols, he's slipping. Iris kept her expression neutral. What does that have to do with me? You're the reason, you and the child. He's trying to be something he's not, a family man, a father, a protector. But you can't be those things in our world. You can only be strong, and strength requires sacrifice. So you're what? Teaching him a lesson? I'm removing a distraction. The casual way he said it made Iris's blood run cold. You're going to kill me, she said flatly. Only if necessary. Preferably, you'll accept my offer. Leave Seoul. Let Kale remember what it feels like to lose something. Maybe then he'll sharpen up again, become the opponent I actually respect. You respect him? Of course. Kyle Ryu built an empire from nothing, survived challenges that would have destroyed lesser men. He's brilliant, dangerous, absolutely ruthless when he needs to be. Lucien paused. Or at least he was. Before you. Iris forced herself to take a breath. To think. Lucien was laying all his cards on the table, which meant he either thought she was stupid or he was setting a trap. What if I told you I could make him sharper? She asked. Lucien's eyes narrowed. How? By staying. By being the reason he fights harder instead of the reason he falls apart. You think I'm a weakness. But what if I'm actually the opposite? Explain. Iris leaned forward. Kale's been operating on autopilot for years, going through motions, building an empire because that's what he knows how to do. But he's not invested. Not really. He doesn't care if he wins or loses because he has nothing left to protect except abstracts, territory, money, power. And you've changed that? His daughter changed that. I just reminded him what it feels like to want something beyond survival. Lucien studied her for a long moment. You're smarter than you look. I get that a lot. But you're also naive. You think love makes people stronger. It doesn't. It makes them desperate, reckless, willing to burn everything to save one thing. That's not strength, Miss Vale. That's weakness wearing a different mask. Or maybe it's the only thing worth fighting for. Philosophical, poetic, completely useless in a gunfight. Is that what this is? A gunfight? Eventually, Lucien finished his coffee and set down the cup with careful precision. Let me be very clear about something. This war between Kyle and me, it's been coming for 3 years. Territory disputes, shipment interference, small provocations building into something bigger. The only reason we haven't destroyed each other yet is because we're evenly matched. But you've tipped the scales. How? By giving him something to lose. Now he can't take the risks he used to take. Can't make the brutal choices. Because every decision has to factor in whether it puts you and his daughter at risk. That hesitation will get him killed. Unless it makes him more careful, more strategic. There's no such thing as careful strategy in war. Only speed and violence. Iris met his eyes. Then why are you talking to me instead of just killing me? Lucien smiled. Because I wanted to see if you were worth all this trouble. If you actually understood what you've gotten yourself into. And? You understand more than I expected, but not enough. You still think this is a story with a happy ending. It's not. One of 3 things will happen. You die. Kyle dies. Or you both survive and live in a fortress for the rest of your lives, always watching for the next knife in the dark. Those are your options. What about a 4th option? Which is? You and Kale stop this before it gets worse. Renegotiate territories. Find a new balance. Lucien laughed. Actually threw his head back and laughed like she'd told the best joke he'd heard in years. Oh, Miss Vale, you really are naive. He stood. Thank you for meeting me. This has been enlightening, but I'm afraid I can't accept your 4th option. Why not? He leaned down, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. Because I don't want balance, he said quietly. I want everything. Kyle's territory, his shipping routes, his connections, everything he's built, and you've given me the perfect excuse to take it. He straightened, buttoned his jacket, smiled that shark smile. You have 24 hours to leave Seoul. After that, you become fair game. And trust me, you don't want to be the prey in this particular hunt. He walked away without waiting for a response. His bodyguards followed him out. Iris sat alone at the table, her untouched coffee going cold, and tried to process what had just happened. Lucien wasn't interested in negotiation. He'd never been. The warehouse explosion hadn't been a warning. It had been an opening move in a war he'd been planning for years. And she'd just walked into his trap, thinking she could talk her way through it. Her phone buzzed. Kyle, are you alive? Yes, what happened? He's not interested in peace. He wants everything you have, and he's using me as the excuse to take it. The response took longer this time. Come home. Now. Which home? Mine. Iris stood, left money on the table, walked out of the cafe into Seoul's afternoon chaos. A black car was waiting at the curb, Jin behind the wheel. She got in without being asked. Mr. Ryu wants you at the mansion, Jin said. I figured. They drove in silence for several minutes. Then Jin spoke again. You shouldn't have met with Seo. Probably not. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. This time. Iris looked at Jin's reflection in the rearview mirror. Do you think Kael can win this? Jin was quiet for a long moment. I think Mr. Ryu can survive anything except losing someone he loves. That's his only weakness. And you think I'm that weakness. I know you are. I've been with him 15 years, never seen him like this. Not even with his wife. What was she like? Strong, smart, understood his world because she grew up in it. Her father ran a syndicate in Busan. The marriage was strategic at first. Then they actually fell in love. Jin paused. She knew the risks, accepted them. But cancer doesn't care about strategy or strength. How did Nari handle it? She stopped talking for 6 months. Mr. Ryu, he shut down completely, became the thing you see in those offices. Cold, controlled, effective. I thought he'd stay that way forever. Until you showed up eating noodles at your desk like you didn't know you were sitting in the middle of a war zone. Iris almost smiled. I really didn't. I know. That's why it worked. They pulled through the gates of Kael's mansion. The house rose before them, glass and steel and expensive emptiness. But this time, lights were on. Cars filled the driveway. Men in dark suits moved with purpose through the grounds. The fortress was preparing for siege. Jin parked near the entrance. He's in his office. 3rd floor, east wing. Iris got out. The front door opened before she could knock. Kael stood there looking like he'd aged 5 years since yesterday. Still in his suit but rumpled now, tie loosened. Hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep or suppressed emotion or both. You're okay, he said. Not a question, an observation, like he needed to confirm with his own eyes. I'm okay. He pulled her inside, closed the door, then just stood there looking at her like she might disappear if he blinked. I'm sorry, Iris said. For what? For making this harder, for being the weakness Lucien can exploit. Kael's expression darkened. You're not a weakness. You're... He stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. You're the only thing that makes sense anymore. The confession hung in the air between them. Then Kael did something Iris didn't expect. He pulled her into his arms and held her, tight, desperate, like she was the only solid thing in a world that had started dissolving. Iris froze for half a second, then wrapped her arms around him and held on just as hard. They stood in the massive foyer of his fortress mansion and clung to each other like drowning people who'd found something to grab onto. I can't lose you, Kael whispered against her hair. I can't lose anyone else. I won't survive it. Then don't lose me. Fight for me. Fight with me. He pulled back just enough to look at her face. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you instead of locking me away. I'm asking you to trust that I'm strong enough for this. Iris, I know the risks. Lucien made them very clear. But I'm still here. I'm still choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing Nari. So please stop trying to protect me from my own decisions. Kael stared at her. Something in his eyes cracked open. Then he kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative, but with the desperate intensity of someone who'd been holding back for too long and finally couldn't anymore. Iris kissed him back, poured everything into it, all her fear and anger and stubborn determination to stay when everyone kept telling her to run. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. This changes everything, Kael said. I know. If we do this, if we're actually doing this, then you're mine, completely. And I will burn this entire city to keep you safe. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. It didn't. Okay, Iris whispered. Okay? Yes, I'm yours. Now show me where Nari is. I promised her I'd come back. Something that might have been a smile flickered across Kael's face. Then he took her hand, actually took her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, and led her through the mansion. They found Nari in her room, curled up on her bed with crayons scattered around her. She looked up, saw Iris, and her whole face transformed. You came back! I promised, didn't I? Nari launched herself off the bed and wrapped around Iris's legs, holding tight. Iris crouched down and hugged her properly. Hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Appa said there was trouble, that you might have to leave. Iris glanced at Kael. He stood in the doorway watching them with an expression that looked like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. There is trouble, Iris said honestly. But I'm staying anyway, because we're family. Right? Nari nodded fiercely. Right. So we stick together, no matter what. No matter what, Nari echoed. The child pulled back and grabbed a piece of paper from her bed. Another drawing. This one showed 3 figures inside a house, while dark shapes circled outside. But the 3 figures were holding hands, and above them, Nari had drawn a sun breaking through storm clouds. This is us, Nari explained. The bad things are outside, but we're safe inside, together. Iris's throat tightened. It's perfect. Will you stay for dinner? I want to show you how to make the noodles without burning the garlic too much. I'd love that. Nari beamed and ran out of the room, probably heading toward the kitchen. Iris stood, turned to face Kael. He looked wrecked, completely undone by the sight of his daughter smiling. She hasn't been this happy since... He couldn't finish. I know. If anything happens to you, then you'll handle it, because you're her father, and you're strong enough to keep her whole, even when everything's falling apart. I don't know if that's true. It is. I've seen it. Kael moved closer, cupped her face in his hands. I love you. I don't know when it happened or how to stop it, or if I even want to. But I love you. And that's terrifying. Iris's breath caught. Kael, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know before... He stopped. Before what? His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, read the message, and everything in his expression went cold and hard and lethal. What? Iris demanded. Lucien just hit 3 more of my operations. Simultaneously, burned 2 warehouses, hijacked a shipment worth $15 million, killed 8 of my people. The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of it. He's escalating, Kael continued, his voice absolutely flat. Forcing my hand. I either respond with overwhelming violence, or I look weak. And if I look weak, every other syndicate in Seoul will smell blood in the water. What are you going to do? Kael looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, Iris saw the real monster beneath the man. I'm going to remind everyone why they used to be afraid of me, he said quietly. Then his phone rang. Jin's voice came through on speaker. Sir, we have a bigger problem. What? The leak. We found him. It's... Jin paused. It's Park. Silence. What? Kael's voice could have cut glass. Park's been feeding Lucien information for 6 months. Locations, schedules, security protocols, everything. Iris felt the blood drain from her face. Park. The security team leader. The man who'd been watching her apartment. Who knew where she lived? Who'd been outside when Lucien called? Where is he now? Kael asked. Disappeared. Probably went to Lucien the moment we started asking questions. Find him. I want him alive. Sir, alive, Jin. I'm going to ask him some questions before I kill him. Kael ended the call, turned to Iris. Pack a bag. You and Nari are leaving Seoul tonight. What? No. This isn't a discussion. Park knows everything about my security, every weakness, every blind spot. As long as he's alive and working for Lucien, nowhere is safe, especially not here. Then come with us. I can't. I have to end this tonight, before Lucien uses the information Park gave him to destroy everything. Kael, please. His voice cracked. Please just do this. Take Nari somewhere safe. I'll send Jin with you. Full security team. You'll be protected. What about you? I'll do what I've always done. Win or die trying. The casualness of it made Iris want to scream.
You don't get to do this, she said. You don't get to send me away right after telling me you love me. That's not how this works. Iris, no. Listen, you want me to take Nari and run? Fine. But you're coming too. We leave together, as a family. We regroup somewhere safe and figure out how to fight Lucian without getting everyone killed. I can't run. If I run, I lose everything. Every relationship, every alliance, every piece of territory I've spent 20 years building. I become nothing. You become alive. Iris grabbed his shirt. You become a father who's there for his daughter instead of a corpse she has to mourn. You think she cares about your empire? She just wants you. She wants safety, stability. I can't give her that if I'm running. You can't give her anything if you're dead. They stood there shouting at each other while somewhere below them, Nari was probably in the kitchen mixing ingredients and humming. Kale's phone buzzed again. Another message. He read it and went absolutely white. What? Iris demanded. He showed her the screen. A photograph. Nari's school. Empty playground. Taken from inside the fence. And a message. TikTok. Iris felt her whole world tilt sideways. He's threatening her, she whispered. Directly. He's saying he can get to her. Kale's hand was shaking, actually shaking. I'll kill him, he said quietly. I'll kill everyone he's ever met. I'll erase his name from history. He stopped, because they both knew the truth. Threats didn't matter. Revenge didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was keeping Nari alive. We leave, Kale said. All of us. Right now. I'll call Jin. We'll take the secured car to a private airfield. Be in Japan in 3 hours. We can regroup there. What about your empire? It can burn. I don't care. Not if it costs me my daughter. He was already moving, pulling out his phone, barking orders at Jin. Iris ran downstairs to the kitchen. Nari was there, standing on a stool beside the counter, mixing something in a bowl with intense concentration. Nari, Iris said gently, we need to go on a trip. Right now. Can you grab your favorite stuffed animal? The child looked up, saw something in Iris's face. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. We're just going on an adventure. Is Appa coming? Yes, he's coming. But we need to hurry, okay? Nari nodded slowly, set down the bowl. Okay. She slid off the stool and started toward the stairs. That's when the windows exploded. Glass shattered inward in a wave of glittering violence. Iris threw herself over Nari, covering the child's body with her own as shards rained down around them. Shouting erupted from outside. Gunfire. Kael appeared in the doorway, gun in hand. Get down! More gunfire, closer now. Men in tactical gear poured through the shattered windows. Not Kael's men. Lucien's. Kael fired 3 shots. 2 men went down, but there were more. Always more. Jin appeared from another entrance, returning fire. Sir, they hit the gate! Full assault! Kael grabbed Iris and Nari, pulling them toward a door that led to an interior hallway. Move! They ran. Behind them, the sounds of warfare filled the mansion. Gunfire, shouting, breaking glass. Kael led them through a maze of hallways, stopped at what looked like a blank wall, pressed something. A hidden door clicked open. Inside, now. A panic room, reinforced steel, supplies, communications equipment. Iris pulled Nari inside. The child was crying silently, trembling against her. Kael started to follow, then stopped. I need to secure the perimeter, he said. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Jin or me. Kael, he kissed her, hard and desperate. I love you. Keep her safe. Then he was gone. The steel door slammed shut. Iris heard the lock engage. They were sealed inside. She held Nari close while outside the panic room, the battle for Kael's empire raged. And somewhere in the chaos, Lucian Seo was smiling, because he'd finally forced Kael Ryu into the open, into a position where he had to choose between power and family. And whatever choice Kael made, Lucian would win. Iris sat in the dark holding a crying 6-year-old and realized with horrible clarity that they'd been outplayed from the beginning. This wasn't about territory or money. This was about breaking Kael Ryu completely, and they'd just handed Lucian exactly what he needed. Nari's small voice cut through the darkness. Is Appa going to die? Iris held her tighter. No, baby. No. He's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. The lie tasted like ash in her mouth, because outside the panic room she could hear gunfire getting closer, and she had no idea if any of them would survive the night.
The panic room was soundproofed, but Iris could still hear the war happening outside. Muffled gunfire, distant shouts, the percussive thump of something heavy hitting reinforced walls. Nari had stopped crying but hadn't stopped shaking. Iris held the child in her lap, sitting on the floor with her back against cold steel, and tried to slow her own racing heart. The panic room was maybe 10 feet by 12. Reinforced walls, emergency supplies stacked on metal shelving, a small monitor showing security camera feeds from around the mansion. Most of the feeds were dead, static or black screens, but 3 still worked. One showed the front entrance where bodies lay sprawled on white marble that was no longer white. Kael's men. Lucien's men. Impossible to tell which was which when they all bled the same. Another showed the east hallway where 2 figures moved with tactical precision. Lucien's assault team clearing rooms. The third showed the main staircase. Kael stood there alone, positioned behind a marble pillar, reloading his weapon with mechanical efficiency. Blood streaked his face from a cut above his eyebrow. His suit jacket was gone, shirt torn, but his hands were steady. 3 men rounded the corner below him. Kael stepped out and fired. 3 shots. 3 bodies dropping before they could return fire. He moved immediately, knowing the muzzle flash had given away his position. Disappeared from the camera's view. Iris watched the empty staircase and felt her chest constrict.
Is that Appa? Nari whispered. Yes. He's hurt. He's okay. He's fighting. I don't want him to fight. I want him to hide with us. Iris didn't know what to say to that. Couldn't explain that Kael was fighting so they could stay hidden. That every man he put down was one less threat getting close to this steel door. So she just held Nari tighter and watched the monitors. The communications panel beside the door crackled to life. Jin's voice, distorted by static and what sounded like suppressed pain. Miss Vale, can you hear me? Iris scrambled to the panel. I'm here. We're okay. Where are you? West Wing. Took a hit, but I'm mobile. Listen carefully. There are at least 15 hostiles still active inside the mansion. We're down to 6 men. They're pushing us toward the center of the house. Where's Kael? Last I saw, main staircase. But we're being separated. They're using coordinated tactics. Professional-grade assault. What do we do? Static. Then, stay in that room. Don't open the door for anyone. If we don't make contact within 2 hours, there's an emergency exit at the back of the panic room, behind the supply shelves. It leads to underground tunnels. Follow them north for approximately 1 kilometer. You'll come up in a service building outside the property. Jin, if it comes to that, take Nari and run. Don't wait. Don't look back. There's a safe deposit box in Tokyo. Mr. Ryu's attorney has the key. Everything you need is there. Documents, money, new identities if necessary. The finality in his voice made Iris's stomach drop. You're talking like you're not going to make it. I'm talking like a professional, Miss Vale. Hope for the best. Plan for the worst. More gunfire in the background. Jin swore in Korean. I have to go. 2 hours, remember. The line went dead. Iris stared at the communications panel. 2 hours. 120 minutes to find out if the man she loved and the people protecting them would survive. She looked at the monitor showing the staircase. Empty now. No sign of Kael. Nari shifted in her arms. I'm scared. Me too, sweetheart. Will we die? The question was so simple, so devastating. Iris turned Nari to face her, looked into eyes that had already seen too much loss. Listen to me. Your father is the strongest, smartest, most dangerous man I've ever met, and Jin has been protecting him for 15 years. They will get through this, and we will get through this. Together. Promise? Iris thought about all the promises that had been broken. Her parents promising they'd always be there before a drunk driver proved otherwise. Her grandmother promising she'd beat the cancer. Kael promising to protect her before 15 armed men invaded his fortress. But looking at Nari's face, so small, so fragile, so desperately needing something solid to hold on to, Iris made the only choice she could. I promise, she said. Even if it was a lie, it was a necessary one.
They sat together in the dim light of the panic room while the battle raged outside. Iris checked her watch every few minutes, watched time crawl past with agonizing slowness. 15 minutes, 30, 45. The gunfire was getting closer. She could hear it clearly now, even through the soundproofing. Not muffled anymore. Sharp cracks that made Nari flinch with each one. Iris pulled up the security feeds again. The front entrance feed was still dead, but the hallway feed now showed something that made her blood run cold. 4 men in tactical gear were setting up some kind of equipment outside a door, not breaching it, setting something up deliberately. Iris stared at the image, tried to orient herself based on the hallway layout. That door led to the east wing, where the panic room was located. They were coming for them. She hit the communications panel. Jin? Kael? Anyone? Static.
Jin, they're outside. They know where we are. Nothing. Iris's mind raced. The panic room was designed to withstand breaching attempts. Reinforced steel, electronic locks with manual backups. It should hold. Should. But Lucian had Park. Park, who knew every security detail about this house. Park, who probably knew exactly how this panic room was built and what it would take to get through it. On the monitor, one of the men stepped back from the equipment they'd set up.
Iris saw it clearly now. Shaped charges. Military-grade explosives designed to cut through reinforced barriers. They were going to blow the door. Nari, Iris said, forcing her voice to stay calm. We need to move, right now. She pulled the child to her feet and ran to the supply shelves, started yanking them away from the back wall. Behind the shelving was exactly what Jin had described, a steel hatch set flush with the wall. Emergency exit. Iris grabbed the handle and pulled. The hatch didn't budge. She pulled harder, put her whole body into it. Nothing. There was a keypad beside the hatch. Electronic lock. No, no, no! Iris frantically tried combinations. Nari's birthday. Kael's birthday. Random numbers. Nothing worked. On the monitor, the tactical team was backing away from the door, getting clear of the blast radius. 30 seconds, maybe less. Iris pulled Nari to the corner farthest from the door, shielded her body with her own. Close your eyes and cover your ears. I'm scared. I know. Me too. Just hold on to me. The explosion was the loudest thing Iris had ever heard. Even through reinforced steel, the concussive force felt like being hit by a truck. The room shook. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by the glow of the monitors. Iris's ears rang, her head pounded. Nari was screaming, but Iris could barely hear it over the ringing. Then light flooded in from the hallway. The door, the supposedly impenetrable panic room door, had been blown inward. Twisted metal hung from mangled hinges. Smoke poured through the opening. 4 shapes moved through the smoke. Tactical gear, weapons raised. Iris pressed Nari into the corner behind her. Stay down. One of the shapes stepped forward into the dim light of the monitors, not one of the tactical team. Lucien Co. He looked immaculate despite the chaos. Different suit from the cafe meeting, but just as expensive. Not a hair out of place. He surveyed the destroyed door with mild interest, then turned his attention to Iris and Nari huddled in the corner. Miss Vale, he said pleasantly, I did give you 24 hours to leave Seoul. This is quite disappointing. Iris said nothing, just kept Nari behind her and tried to figure out if she could reach any of the supplies that might work as a weapon. Lucian seemed to read her thoughts. Don't. My men will shoot you before you take 3 steps, and while I'm willing to kill you if necessary, I'd prefer to avoid traumatizing the child more than absolutely required. He moved closer, crouched down so he was eye level with them. Hello, Nari, he said gently. My name is Lucien. I'm an old friend of your father's. Nari pressed her face against Iris's back, wouldn't look at him. I know you're scared, Lucien continued, but you don't need to be. I'm not going to hurt you. You're much too valuable for that. Don't talk to her, Iris said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Lucien shifted his attention to her. Still brave. I respect that. Futile but brave. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted. Kael's complete surrender, his territory, his operations, everything. Lucien stood. And now I have the leverage to get it. He gestured to one of his men. Bring them. Rough hands grabbed Iris, yanking her to her feet. Another man reached for Nari. Don't touch her! Iris tried to fight, but the tactical operative holding her was twice her size and trained for this. He twisted her arms behind her back with professional efficiency.
Nari screamed as another man picked her up. Gently, Lucien said sharply. I meant what I said about not traumatizing her unnecessarily. They were dragged out of the panic room into the hallway. The mansion looked like a war zone. Bullet holes in walls, blood on marble floors, bodies. So many bodies. Some wore Kael's security uniforms. Some wore tactical gear, all equally dead. Iris tried not to let Nari see, tried to position herself between the child and the worst of it. They were taken down corridors Iris didn't recognize, through rooms she'd never seen. The mansion was enormous, and in the chaos she'd lost all sense of direction. Finally, they emerged into what looked like a formal living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens, expensive furniture, a massive fireplace. And Kael. He knelt in the center of the room, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood streaming from a gash on his temple. 3 of Lucien's men surrounded him, weapons trained on his head. Jin was there too, sitting against the wall with a hand pressed to his side where blood seeped between his fingers, conscious but barely. Kael's head snapped up when they brought in Iris and Nari. The expression on his face was pure anguish. Don't hurt them, he said immediately. Please, they're not part of this. On the contrary, Lucien said, walking past Iris to stand before Kael. They're the entire point. Let them go. The men holding Iris and Nari released them, but didn't step back. Nari immediately ran to her father. Appa! She tried to hug him, but couldn't because his hands were bound. She pressed against his chest instead, sobbing. Kael bent his head to her, whispered something in Korean, something soft and broken. Iris moved toward them, but one of Lucien's men blocked her path. No closer, the operative said. Lucien walked to the fireplace, turned to face the room like he was addressing a board meeting instead of hostages. Let me explain how this works, he said. Kael, you're going to sign over everything, every business holding, every territory agreement, every shipping contract. All of it transfers to me, legally, cleanly. And if I don't? Kael's voice was hollow. Then I kill Miss Vale in front of your daughter. Then I kill your daughter in front of you. Then I kill you. In that order. So you can experience maximum suffering before the end. The casual way he laid it out made Iris's skin crawl. You're insane, she said. Lucien looked at her. No, I'm practical. Kael's empire is worth approximately $2 billion in assets and influence. Do you really think I'd let personal ethics stand in the way of acquiring it? You'd kill a child for money? I'd kill 100 children for $2 billion. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. He turned back to Kael. The documents are being prepared now. You'll sign them. You'll record a video statement transferring everything voluntarily. Then you'll be taken somewhere secure while I consolidate power. If you behave, you might even survive. And Nari? Iris? They go free. I have no use for them once I have what I want. You're lying. Probably. But do you really want to gamble their lives on it? Kael looked at his daughter. At Iris? At Jin bleeding against the wall. And Iris watched the exact moment when Kael Minjae Ryu, the most feared man in Seoul's underworld, broke completely. I'll sign, he said quietly. Whatever you want. Just let them go first. No, Lucien said. They stay until the transfers are complete. Insurance that you don't do anything stupid. Please. This isn't a negotiation, Kael. This is your surrender. The room fell silent, except for Nari's quiet sobbing against her father's chest. Iris looked around desperately. 7 of Lucien's men that she could see, all armed, all professional. Jin was incapacitated. Kael was restrained. And she was an art student who'd learned exactly nothing about combat. There was no way out of this. They'd lost. One of Lucien's men approached with a tablet and a portable printer. Set them on a nearby table. The documents are ready, he said. Lucien gestured to Kael. Bring him over. Cut one hand free so he can sign. 2 men hauled Kael to his feet. Nari clung to his legs, refusing to let go. It's okay, Nariya, Kael said in Korean. His voice was gentle despite everything. Let go for a moment. Appa needs to do something. Don't leave me, Nari whimpered. Never. I will never leave you. I promise.
One of the operatives cut the zip tie on Kael's right hand, kept his left hand bound, kept a gun pressed to his spine. They positioned him in front of the table. Lucien handed him a pen. Sign each document where indicated. Don't even think about trying anything clever. Kael took the pen. His hand hovered over the first document, transfer of corporate holdings. His entire legitimate business empire signed over in a single signature. Iris watched his face, saw the calculation happening behind his eyes, saw him weighing options that didn't exist. He signed. The pen scratched across expensive paper, destroying everything he'd built with a single stroke. Lucien smiled. Good. Next page. Kael flipped the document, signed again and again and again. 7 documents, 7 signatures, 20 years of work erased in 90 seconds. Excellent, Lucien said. Now the video statement. One of his men set up a camera on a tripod, positioned it to capture Kael's face. Just read the script, Lucien said, handing Kael a card. Don't improvise. Kael glanced at the card. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. The camera started recording. My name is Kael Minjae Ryu, he said, reading mechanically. I am voluntarily transferring all business holdings and operational territories to Lucien Co., effective immediately. This transfer is made of my own free will, without coercion, as part of a mutual agreement. He stopped, looked directly at the camera, and went off script. If you're watching this, I'm probably dead. Lucien Co. tortured my family and forced this confession. Everything I'm signing is under duress. The man is a psychopath who... The operative behind Kael slammed the gun into his head. Kael went down hard. Nari screamed. Lucien moved with frightening speed, grabbed Nari by her hair, and pulled a handgun from inside his jacket, pressed it against the child's temple. Stupid, Lucien said coldly. Incredibly stupid. Kael struggled to his knees, blood pouring from a new wound. Don't, please. She's 6 years old. And you just made her a liability instead of leverage. Iris couldn't think, couldn't breathe, could only watch in horror as Lucien held a gun to Nari's head while the child sobbed in terror. Here's what's going to happen, Lucien said. You're going to do that video again, perfectly, following the script exactly. Or I pull this trigger and your daughter's last memory is watching you fail to protect her. Your choice. Kael was shaking, actually shaking. Okay, I'll do it. Just please put the gun down. Do the video first. I can't think with a gun to my daughter's head. Then think faster. Iris felt something snap inside her. She'd been standing there, watching, helpless, letting this monster terrorize a child because she didn't know what else to do. But watching Kael break, watching Nari sob in pure terror, watching Lucien smile because he'd won. Something in Iris's brain shifted. She stopped thinking about survival, started thinking about damage. The operative nearest to her had his weapon lowered slightly. Attention on Lucien and Kael, not watching her closely enough. Iris grabbed the decorative vase from the table beside her and swung it at his head with everything she had. The vase shattered against his skull. He went down hard. Iris dropped and grabbed his weapon before anyone could react. She'd never fired a gun in her life, but she'd watched enough movies to know the basics. Safety off, point, squeeze. She aimed at Lucien and pulled the trigger. The gun kicked harder than she expected. The shot went wide, missing Lucien, but close enough that he jerked backward reflexively. Close enough that he dropped Nari. Everything happened at once. Kael lunged forward, slamming into the operative who'd been holding him. The man went down and Kael grabbed his weapon. Jin pushed himself off the wall with a roar of pain and threw himself at the nearest hostile. Lucien's remaining men opened fire. Iris dropped behind the couch as bullets tore through expensive upholstery. She couldn't see Nari, couldn't see Kael, could only hear gunfire and screaming and the wet sound of bullets hitting flesh. Someone grabbed her ankle. She kicked instinctively, connected with something soft, heard a grunt of pain, scrambled forward on her hands and knees. The gun was gone, dropped somewhere in the chaos. More gunfire, so loud it felt like her eardrums would burst. Then sudden silence. Iris lifted her head cautiously. Bodies everywhere. Lucien's men. All down, some moving weakly, most completely still. Jin was slumped against the wall again, unconscious or dead. Iris couldn't tell. Kael stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, covered in blood, his own and others. with a gun in his hand. And 10 feet away, Lucien So sat on the floor with his back against the fireplace, holding his side where blood seeped between his fingers. He was laughing. Not bad, Lucien said, coughing. Should have seen that coming. The girl had that desperate look, always dangerous. Kale walked toward him slowly, deliberately, raised his weapon. Where's Nari? Iris called out. Kale's eyes didn't leave Lucien. Under the desk. She's okay. Iris scrambled to the massive desk in the corner, found Nari curled underneath it, hands over her ears, eyes squeezed shut.
It's okay, Iris whispered. Don't look. Just stay here with your eyes closed. I'll tell you when it's safe. She positioned herself to block Nari's view, then looked back at Kael. He stood over Lucien with the gun pointed at his head. Any last words? Kael asked. Lucien smiled through bloody teeth. You think this ends with me dead? I have partners, allies. They'll come for you, for your daughter. They'll never stop. Then I'll kill them too. All of them? Every person I've done business with over 20 years? You'll spend the rest of your life fighting ghosts. Then that's what I'll do. Lucien laughed again, wet and bubbling. You've lost, Kael. Even if you kill me, you've lost. Your empire is in ruins. Your house is destroyed. Half your men are dead, and your daughter just watched you become the monster you've been pretending not to be. Kael's finger tightened on the trigger. Do it, Lucien said. Pull the trigger. Prove me right. Kael, Iris said quietly. He didn't look at her. Kael, she said again. Nari needs you. Not revenge. You. He tried to kill her. I know, but if you do this, if you execute him in front of me, then everything changes. You become the thing you've been trying not to be. I am that thing. I've always been that thing. No, you're a father, a man who loves his daughter. Don't let him take that away. Kael's hand shook. Lucien watched with something like fascination. Listen to the girl, Kael. Be noble. Be good. Let me live. And see how long it takes before I come back and finish what I started. The calculation was visible on Kael's face. Kill Lucien and become the monster. Prove to Nari that violence was the only answer. Or let him live and risk everything happening again. There was no good choice. There never was in his world. Kael lowered the gun. Lucien's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Then Kael shot him in both kneecaps. Lucien's scream echoed through the mansion. You don't die, Kael said flatly. You don't get that mercy. You live. As a cripple. As a warning. Every person in Seoul's underworld will know what happens when you threaten my family. They'll see you dragging yourself around on useless legs for the rest of your pathetic life. And they'll remember. He turned to Iris. Call Jin's backup team. The number's in his phone. Tell them we need immediate medical evacuation and cleanup. Iris moved numbly to comply, found Jin's phone in his jacket, made the call with shaking hands. Behind her, Lucien had stopped screaming and passed out from pain. Kael walked to the desk where Nari was still hiding. Naria, he said gently, it's over. You can come out now. The child uncurled slowly, looked up at her father with eyes that had seen too much. Are you hurt? Kael asked. Nari shook her head. Are you scared of me? Nari thought about it, then nodded. A little. The honesty seemed to hit Kael harder than any bullet. I understand, he said quietly. I'm scared of me too sometimes. He held out his hand. Nari looked at it, at the blood on it, at the man who was her father, and also something else entirely. Then she took his hand and let him pull her out from under the desk. She didn't hug him, didn't cry, just stood there holding his hand while sirens wailed in the distance. Iris watched them and felt her heart break and heal simultaneously. They'd survived. But the cost was written all over Nari's face. The mansion filled with people over the next 30 minutes. Jin's backup team, paramedics, men in suits who cleaned up bodies with professional efficiency. Jin was alive, barely. Critical condition but stable enough to transport. Lucien was taken away on a stretcher, unconscious, with 2 armed guards. He'd face whatever Kael decided later. But for now, he lived. Iris sat on the front steps of the ruined mansion with Nari curled against her side. The child hadn't spoken since coming out from under the desk.
Kyle was inside giving instructions to his remaining lieutenants, organizing what came next. Dawn was breaking over Seoul, the city waking up to another day, completely unaware of the war that had been fought in one of its mansions. Iris looked at the blood on her hands. The vase she'd used as a weapon had cut her palms when it shattered. She hadn't even noticed until now. "Miss Vale?" Nary's small voice. "Yes, sweetheart? Are we still a family, even after—" She couldn't finish. Iris pulled her closer. "Yes, we're still a family. Families survive terrible things together. That's what makes them families. Will Appa be okay? I don't know. But we'll help him. Both of us." Nari nodded against her shoulder. Kyle emerged from the mansion. He'd cleaned the blood off his face, but his clothes were still ruined. He looked exhausted, haunted. He sat down on the steps beside them. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Kale said, "I'm selling everything. The territory, the operations, all of it. I'm done." Iris looked at him. "What? I can't do this anymore. Can't risk you. Can't risk her." He gestured at Nari. "Tonight proved that. As long as I'm in this world, everyone I love is a target. Where will we go?" The "we" seemed to surprise him. "You still want to, after everything?" "Yes, we're family, remember? That's what Nari drew, that's what we are. So where do we go?" Kyle looked out at Seoul sprawling beneath them, at the city he'd ruled and bled for and nearly died defending. "Somewhere quiet," he said finally. "Somewhere she can grow up normal. Somewhere I can learn to be just a father instead of—" "A king?" Iris finished. "A monster." "You're not a monster. I crippled a man 20 minutes ago. To protect your daughter, that's different." "Is it?" Iris thought about it honestly. "I don't know. Maybe the line is thinner than we want to believe. But you chose not to kill him, in front of Nari. That matters." Kyle looked at his daughter. "Does it matter to you?" Nari lifted her head, looked at her father with those two old eyes. "I don't know yet," she said quietly. "Can I tell you later?" The honesty devastated him, but he nodded. "Whenever you're ready." They sat together on the steps of the ruined mansion and watched the sun rise over Seoul. Three people who'd survived a war and had no idea how to build peace. But they'd figure it out, together. Because that's what families did. Even broken ones. Especially broken ones. 3 weeks after the siege, Kyle stood in the ruins of his office on the 78th floor and watched movers pack the last of his legitimate business into cardboard boxes. The building felt like a mausoleum. Most of the staff had quit or been let go. The ones who remained moved through the space like ghosts, speaking in whispers, avoiding eye contact with the man who'd brought a war into their workplace. Iris sat at her old desk, the one where she'd eaten noodles from a white lunchbox and unknowingly started everything. She was sorting through files, creating inventories for the liquidation attorneys. Her hands moved mechanically, but her eyes were somewhere else entirely. She hadn't been sleeping. Kale knew because he hadn't been sleeping either. Some nights he'd find her standing at the window of the hotel suite where they'd been staying, just staring out at Seoul like she was trying to memorize it before leaving. They were leaving. That part was decided. Everything else remained uncertain. The intercom on the desk buzzed. One of the movers. "Mr. Ryu, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Park." Kale's hand went reflexively to where he used to carry a weapon. But he'd stopped carrying after that night. Stopped a lot of things. "Send him up," Kyle said. Iris looked at him sharply. "Park? The traitor?" "Yes." "Why would he come here?" "Only one way to find out." Kale walked to the elevator lobby and waited. The numbers climbed. 65, 70, 75, 78. The doors opened. Park stepped out. He looked terrible, thinner than Kale remembered, hollow-eyed, moving with the careful deliberation of someone who expected violence at any moment. "Mr. Ryu," Park said quietly, "you have 60 seconds to explain why I shouldn't kill you right here. Because you're not that person anymore. I've been watching. You sold the territories, dissolved the operations. You're leaving Seoul." Park paused. "You're getting out." "That doesn't answer my question." "I came to apologize and to warn you." Kale crossed his arms. "I'm listening." Park glanced at Iris, who'd appeared in the office doorway. Should she hear this? She's heard worse. Talk. Park took a breath. Lucien recruited me 8 months ago, threatened my family. My daughter has cerebral palsy. The treatments are expensive. He offered money, protection. I didn't. He stopped. There's no excuse. I betrayed you. I know that. And the warning? Lucian's partners. The ones he mentioned before you shot his knees. They're real. There are 5 of them. Major players across Asia. When Lucien went down, they started circling, trying to figure out who fills the power vacuum. Let them fight over scraps. I'm done. They don't care that you're done. You destroyed Lucien, made him a cripple. That sends a message. Either you're weak enough to finish off or strong enough to be a threat. Either way, they're watching you. Kale felt the familiar weight settling back onto his shoulders, the weight he'd been trying to shed for 3 weeks. Names, he said. Chen, operates out of Hong Kong. Yamamoto in Tokyo, 2 brothers in Bangkok, the Sirichai family. And someone new, American. Calls himself Cross. No one knows his real name. He's the most dangerous, completely unpredictable. What do they want? Information. They want to know if you're really out or if this is a strategic retreat. They want to know what you did with your assets, who you're still connected to. They want... Park stopped. They want to know if killing you would be profitable or problematic. Iris made a sound like she'd been punched. Kael ignored it, focused on Park. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a daughter too. And after what happened to Nari, what almost happened, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't at least try to make it right. Your conscience is 20 years too late. I know, but it's all I have left. Park pulled an envelope from his jacket, set it on the receptionist's desk between them. Everything I know about Lucien's partners, locations, associates, weaknesses. It's not much, but maybe it helps you disappear properly. He turned toward the elevator. Park, Kyle said. The man stopped. Your daughter, the one with cerebral palsy. What's her name? Mina. How old? 9. Kale pulled out his phone, typed something, hit send. Check your bank account in 10 minutes. That should cover her treatments for the next 5 years. After that, you're on your own. Park stared at him. Why would you? Because you're right. I'm not that person anymore. Now get out before I change my mind. Park left without another word. Iris walked over slowly, picked up the envelope. Are you going to look at this? No. Kyle, I meant what I said. I'm done. Whatever these people want, they can have it. I have nothing left to take. Except us. The words hung in the air. Kyle looked at her. Really looked at her. She'd lost weight over the past 3 weeks. Had a haunted quality that hadn't been there before the siege. The woman who'd eaten cheap noodles and drawn suns in crayon was still in there somewhere, but buried under layers of trauma and exhaustion. He'd done that to her. Where's Nari? He asked. With Jin's sister, the physical therapist. They're working on art therapy, drawing out the feelings she can't talk about yet. Is it helping? I don't know. She draws the same thing over and over. Our family. But now there are walls around us, and shadows outside the walls, and the sun is always hidden behind clouds. Kyle closed his eyes. She should hate me. She doesn't hate you. She's just processing, trying to figure out who you are now that she's seen what you're capable of. And you? Have you figured out who I am? Iris was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful, measured. I think you're someone who spent 20 years becoming a monster so you could survive. And now you're trying to figure out if you can become human again. But you're terrified that the monster is all that's left. The accuracy of it felt like a blade between his ribs. What if it is? Kyle asked. What if I try to be normal and it doesn't work? What if I wake up one day and realize I miss the violence, the control, the power? Then we'll deal with it, together. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But you're doing it for her, for Nari. That's what matters. Kyle looked out the window at Seoul sprawling beneath them, the city he'd ruled from this tower, the empire he'd built floor by floor, body by body, all of it gone now, sold to former allies who'd circled like sharks the moment they smelled blood in the water. The money was sitting in offshore accounts, enough to live comfortably for several lifetimes, enough to give Nari every opportunity she'd need, But money couldn't erase what she'd witnessed, couldn't unhear the gunfire or unsee the blood. Nothing could. "When do we leave?" Iris asked. "Iris bam. 2 days?" Jin arranged everything. New passports, new identities, a house in New Zealand, small town, coast, completely off the grid. New Zealand? You said you wanted somewhere quiet. I did. I do. Iris touched his arm. Will you be okay there? Living a normal life after all this? I don't know, but I'm going to try. She nodded. That's all anyone can do. They stood together in the office that had been the center of Kael's empire and watched the movers pack it into boxes that would go into storage or get thrown away. 20 years reduced to cardboard and packing tape. The intercom buzzed again. Mr. Ryu, there's a call for you. Line 1. He says it's urgent. Kael picked up the phone. Yes? The voice on the other end was American. Smooth, almost friendly. Mr. Ryu, my name is Cross. I believe our mutual friend Park may have mentioned me. Every muscle in Kael's body tensed. What do you want? Just to talk. 5 minutes of your time, in person. There's a cafe 3 blocks from your building. I'm there now. Come alone. And if I don't? Then I'll assume you're still playing the game, and I'll respond accordingly. Your choice. The line went dead. Kael set down the phone carefully. What is it? Iris asked. One of Lucien's partners. He wants to meet. You're not going. I have to. If I don't, he'll interpret it as a threat, and we can't afford another war. Not when we're this close to leaving. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to make that decision. We're in this together, remember? Kael wanted to argue, wanted to lock her in the office and go face this alone. But he'd promised to stop doing that, to stop treating her like something fragile that needed protecting. Fine, he said. But if anything goes wrong, then we'll handle it, like we've handled everything else. They took the elevator down, walked 3 blocks through Seoul's mid-morning crowds to a cafe Kael had never been to. Cross was easy to spot. Late 30s, sharp suit, sitting alone at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. He had the look of someone who'd spent time in military or intelligence work, alert, controlled, dangerous beneath a veneer of corporate professionalism. He stood when they approached. Mr. Ryu, thank you for coming, and you must be Miss Vale. Please, sit. Kael remained standing. You have 5 minutes. I'll need less. I came to tell you that Lucien's partners have agreed to accept your withdrawal from the business. No retaliation, no pursuit. You're free to go. The words were too easy, too clean. What's the price? Kael asked. Cross smiled. Smart. The price is simple. You stay out completely. No consulting, no advice to former associates, no leveraging old connections. You disappear entirely and never come back. If you violate that agreement, the deal is void. And if someone comes after me anyway, if one of your partners decides I'm a loose end worth tying up, then you defend yourself. We won't interfere. But if you start rebuilding power, if you start looking like a threat again, all 5 of us will come down on you simultaneously, and you won't survive that. No one could. Kael studied him, looked for the trap, the hidden angle. Why are you offering this? He asked. Because you did us a favor. Lucien was a problem, unpredictable, violent, bad for business. You removing him from the board, even if you didn't kill him, solved an issue we've been dealing with for years. Consider this our way of saying thank you. And what happened to Lucien? Cross's expression darkened. He's alive, in a private facility, very secure, very isolated. He'll spend the rest of his life there, unable to walk, unable to rebuild. A cautionary tale. Good. We thought you'd approve. Cross stood. That's all I came to say. Enjoy New Zealand, Mr. Ryu. I hear the coast is beautiful this time of year. He walked out without waiting for a response. Iris grabbed Kael's hand. How did he know about New Zealand? Because people like him know everything. Jin must have a leak in his network, or they've been monitoring communications. Doesn't matter now. What if this is a trap? What if they're just waiting for us to leave Seoul so they can... They're not. Cross meant what he said. I'm more valuable as a cautionary tale than as a corpse. As long as I stay quiet, they leave us alone. And you trust that? Kael thought about it honestly. No.
But I don't have a choice. We're committed now. We leave in 2 days, and we pray they keep their word. They walked back to the building in silence. That night, Kyle went to see Nari at the temporary apartment where she'd been staying with Jin's sister. The woman was kind, professional, specialized in childhood trauma. She'd been working with Nari every day, using art and play therapy to help her process what she'd experienced. She's making progress, the therapist said quietly at the door. But it's slow. She has nightmares, trouble sleeping, hypervigilance. All normal for what she's been through. Can I see her? Of course. She's been asking for you. Kyle found Nari in a small room filled with art supplies. She sat at a table covered in drawings, hundreds of them, different versions of the same image. 3 figures, walls, shadows, hidden suns. She looked up when he entered. Appa? Hi, Nariya. He sat beside her, looked at the drawings spread across the table. Some had more details than others. Flowers trying to grow through cracks in the walls, birds circling overhead, small windows letting in slivers of light. Your therapist says you're doing good work, Kyle said. Nari picked up a crayon, started drawing again. She says drawing helps me understand my feelings. Does it? Sometimes. I still don't understand everything. What don't you understand? Nari was quiet for a moment, then, why bad people hurt children? Why you had to hurt them back? Why Miss Vale is sad even though we're safe now? The questions were delivered with devastating simplicity. Kyle tried to find answers that would make sense to a 6-year-old. Came up empty. I don't understand all of it either, he admitted, but I know that sometimes people make terrible choices, and those choices hurt other people, and when that happens, we have to decide how to respond. Do we fight back? Do we run? Do we try to find another way? What did you choose? I chose to fight, to protect you, but fighting meant doing things that scared you. That's the part I'm still trying to figure out how to fix. Nari kept drawing, added clouds to her picture, heavy and dark. The therapist says you can't fix the past. You can only change what happens next. She's right. So what happens next? Kyle looked at his daughter, so small, so serious, so much wiser than she should be at her age. We move to a new place, he said, near the ocean. We get a house with a big kitchen where we can cook together. Miss Vale will teach you more recipes. I'll learn how to be a normal father instead of... He stopped. Instead of what? Instead of the person I had to be in soul. Nari set down her crayon, looked at him with eyes that saw too much. Will you miss it? Being powerful? The honesty in the question deserved an honest answer. Yes, Kyle said. Part of me will always miss it. The control, the respect, the feeling that I could protect you from anything. But that was a lie. I couldn't protect you from everything, and trying to be that powerful is what put you in danger in the first place. So you're choosing us instead of power? Yes. Does that make you sad? Kyle thought about it. It makes me scared, but also hopeful, which is a feeling I haven't had in a long time. Nari picked up her drawing, the one with 3 figures and walls and shadows. She studied it carefully. Then she picked up a yellow crayon and drew something new. A door. In the wall. Open. And beyond the door she drew a house by water, trees, an open sky, a sun breaking through clouds. This is where we're going, she said. Right? Yes. Will we be happy there? I don't know, but we'll be together. That's a start. Nari nodded slowly. Then she did something she hadn't done since the siege. She crawled into his lap and wrapped her arms around his neck. Kyle held her carefully, like she was made of glass, like she might break if he squeezed too hard. I love you, Appa, Nari whispered. The words broke something inside him that had been holding together through sheer force of will. I love you too, he managed, more than anything. They sat like that for a long time while Nari's drawings rustled in the breeze from an open window and Soul hummed outside. Healing had started, slow and painful and uncertain, but it had started. 2 days later, they left Seoul at dawn, private car to a private airfield. Jin was there waiting, still recovering from his injuries but insisting on seeing them off. Everything is arranged, Jin said, handing Kale a folder. New documents, bank accounts. The house is ready. Security is minimal but present.
Just cameras and alarms. No armed guards unless you request them. I won't request them. Jin studied him. You're really doing this, walking away from everything. Yes.
I never thought I'd see the day.
Neither did I. Jin turned to Iris. Take care of him, Miss Vale. He's terrible at taking care of himself. Iris smiled slightly. I've noticed. Then Jin crouched down to Nari's level. You be good for your father, and remember, if you ever need anything, you call me. Okay? Nari nodded. Okay, Uncle Jin. He pulled her into a gentle hug. When he stood, his eyes were wet. Kael shook his hand. Thank you for everything. It was an honor, sir. Don't call me sir anymore. I'm not your boss. I'm just... Kael. Jin smiled. That will take some getting used to, but I'll try. They boarded the small private jet, took seats by the windows. Nari sat between Kael and Iris, holding both their hands. The plane taxied down the runway. Seoul spread beneath them, millions of lights beginning to wake up as dawn broke over the city. Kael looked down at the empire he'd ruled and the life he was leaving behind. And for the first time in 20 years, he didn't feel the need to control it. He just felt tired and ready to rest. The plane lifted into the morning sky. Seoul grew smaller, disappeared beneath clouds, and Kael Min-jae Ryu, the feared mafia king, the ruthless businessman, the phantom who made men vanish, became simply a father holding his daughter's hand while his partner sat beside him, and they all flew towards something resembling peace. Gyeng. 6 months later, Iris stood in the kitchen of their house in New Zealand and burned garlic on purpose. The house was everything they'd hoped for. Small compared to the Seoul mansion, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. Far enough from town that they had privacy. Close enough that Nari could attend the local school without an hour-long commute. The smell of burning garlic drifted through the open windows on an ocean breeze. Kael appeared in the doorway. You're doing it again. Doing what? Burning the garlic deliberately. It tastes better this way. I've told you this. You've told me. I'm still skeptical. He moved to the counter where Nari sat on a stool, carefully chopping vegetables under Iris's supervision. His daughter had started speaking more over the past few months. Still had nightmares. Still drew walls and shadows sometimes, but also drew open doors. Oceans. Suns. How's the homework? Kael asked. Finished, Nari said proudly. Miss Sarah said my English is getting really good. It is. You're working hard. Can we eat dinner outside tonight, on the deck? If you want. I want. Nari hopped off the stool and ran outside to set up the table, leaving Kael and Iris alone in the kitchen. She seems better, Iris said quietly. She does. The therapist says she's processing at a healthy rate, whatever that means. It means she's healing, like we all are. Kael moved behind Iris, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. Are you healing? Some days. Other days I wake up and remember the sound of bullets and think I'll never be okay again. Same. They stood like that for a moment. Two broken people holding each other in a kitchen that smelled like burnt garlic and home. I got a letter today, Kael said. From Jin. Lucien died. Infection from the leg wounds. He suffered for months before the end. Iris felt something complicated move through her chest. Not quite satisfaction. Not quite regret. How do you feel about that? She asked. I don't know. Part of me is glad he's gone. Part of me wishes I'd been the one to do it. Part of me just feels empty. That's normal. He destroyed so much. It's okay to have complicated feelings about his death. You sound like Nari's therapist. Maybe I've been listening to her recordings. Kael smiled against her shoulder. Actually smiled. Have you heard from your school? About the admissions? Iris had applied to a local art program, part-time. Something to do while Nari was in school and Kael was, well, figuring out who he was when he wasn't ruling an empire. Not yet, but I'm not worried. If it doesn't work out, I'll try somewhere else. You could just not work. We have enough money. I need to do something. I can't just cook and clean and wait for you and Nari to come home. I'll go crazy. Fair point. They heard Nari calling from outside. Dinner's ready. I set the table. Iris turned off the stove, started plating the simple meal they'd cooked.
Fried rice, vegetables, nothing fancy. The kind of food that filled stomachs and satisfied souls.
They carried everything outside to the deck, where Nari had indeed set the table. 3 plates, 3 sets of chopsticks, a pitcher of water with lemon slices. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the water in shades of gold and orange. They sat together and ate while the ocean breathed beneath them, and seabirds circled overhead. "This is nice," Nari said around a mouthful of rice. "It is," Kael agreed. "Do you miss Seoul, Appa?" The question came out of nowhere. Kael set down his chopsticks. "Sometimes," he said honestly, "I miss the city, the food, the way everything moved so fast, but I don't miss the person I had to be there." "Do you like who you are here?" "I'm still figuring that out. Ask me again in a year." Nari nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Miss Iris, do you miss America?" Iris thought about it. "I miss my grandmother, and Portland in the fall, but this feels more like home than anywhere I've lived in years." "Because we're here?" "Because you're here, both of you." Nari smiled. "Good." They finished dinner while the sunset faded into twilight. Nari helped clear the table, then went inside to take a bath before bed. Kael and Iris stayed on the deck, sitting close together, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Iris asked. "Long term?" "I think she'll carry scars for the rest of her life, but I also think she's strong enough to carry them. Stronger than I was at her age. Stronger than I am now." "You're stronger than you think." "Maybe. Or maybe I've just had good people holding me together when I would have fallen apart." Iris leaned against him. "We hold each other together. That's how this works." "Is it working, this whole normal life thing?" "I think so. We're not perfect. We still wake up from nightmares. You still check the security cameras compulsively. I still flinch at loud noises. But we're here, we're trying. That's more than a lot of people get." Kael kissed the top of her head. "I love you. I don't say it enough. You say it plenty. I should say it more." "Then say it more." "I love you. I love you too." They sat together under the emerging stars while somewhere inside, Nari splashed in the bath and sang a song she'd learned at school. The sound of a child being a child, unburdened for a moment by the weight of what she'd survived. That sound was worth everything Kael had sacrificed, every dollar, every connection, every piece of power he'd spent 20 years accumulating, all of it worth this single moment of peace. Look. A year later, Iris graduated from her art program with honors. The gallery showing of her work was small, held in a converted warehouse in town. Maybe 50 people attended, locals mostly, fellow students, a few professors. Her pieces were all mixed media, collages combining photography, painting, and found objects. They told stories about survival, about displacement, about finding home in unexpected places. The centerpiece was titled White Lunchbox. It incorporated photographs of Seoul, broken glass, burnt garlic cloves preserved in resin, and a child's crayon drawing of 3 figures holding hands. Kyle stood in front of it for a long time. "It's beautiful," he said finally. "It's us," Iris replied. "All of us. Broken and repaired, scarred but standing." "You're going to sell it, aren't you?" "Someone already bought it. Anonymous buyer, paid asking price without negotiating." Kael smiled slightly. "How anonymous?" "Very. Totally untraceable. Completely mysterious." "Shame. I was hoping to buy it myself." "Were you?" "Maybe." She kissed his cheek. "You're a terrible liar." Across the gallery, Nari stood with a small group of children from her school. She'd grown over the past year. Taller, healthier. Her nightmares had decreased. Her smile came easier. She was showing them her favorite piece, a series of paintings Iris had done of the ocean at different times of day. "She's doing really well," Kael said. "She is. Her teacher says she's one of the kindest kids in class, always helping others, always defending the smaller kids from bullies. Wonder where she learned that." "From her father, probably. The part of him that protects instead of destroys." Kael watched his daughter laugh at something one of her friends said. The sound was pure and unguarded. The sound of a child who felt safe. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. Staying with me? Giving up your old life for this? Iris thought about it honestly. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd taken Lucian's offer. If I'd just left Seoul and let you handle everything alone. But then I look at Nari, and I look at you, and I realize that this messy, complicated, beautiful thing we've built, this is what I was looking for all along. I just didn't know it. What were you looking for? Family. Not the kind you're born into, the kind you choose, the kind you fight for, the kind that stays even when things get hard. Kale pulled her closer. I'm glad you chose us. I'm glad you let me. The gallery showing continued around them. People admired Iris's work, made polite conversation, sipped cheap wine from plastic cups. And in the middle of it all, 3 people who'd survived a war stood together and felt something they'd all been searching for in different ways. Home, not a place, not a building, not even a city, but the feeling of being seen, being chosen, being loved despite everything. That night, after they'd returned to the house by the ocean, after Nari had gone to bed and the dishes were washed and the lights were dimmed, Kael and Iris stood on the deck under stars that seemed close enough to touch. What are you thinking about? Iris asked. Everything. Nothing. The fact that a year ago I was selling an empire and now I'm attending art gallery openings in New Zealand. How does it feel? Surreal. Like I'm living someone else's life. Is that a bad thing? Kael thought about it. No, it's just different, quieter, slower, but not bad. Do you miss the old life? Be honest. Sometimes I miss the clarity of it. You have a problem, you solve it. Someone threatens you, you eliminate the threat. Everything was simple in its brutality. And now? Now nothing is simple. Nari has a bad day at school, and I can't just threaten the other kids into being nice to her. You have doubts about your art, and I can't throw money at it until the doubts go away. I have to actually... He struggled for the words. I have to be present, patient, human. Is that so terrible? It's terrifying, but also... He pulled her closer. Also the best thing I've ever done. They stood together in the darkness while the ocean whispered beneath them, and somewhere inside, Nari dreamed dreams that didn't always include walls and shadows anymore. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were harder than others. Some nights the nightmares came back. Some mornings Kael woke up and felt the ghost of his old life calling to him like a siren song. But they were healing, together, and that was enough. 2 years after leaving Seoul, Kael Min-jae Ryu stood in the kitchen of their house and watched Iris teach Nari how to make kimchi from scratch. His daughter was 8 now, taller, confident, still carried scars, both visible and invisible, but wore them like badges of survival instead of shame. Iris had started teaching art classes at the local community center, had sold several pieces to galleries in Auckland and Sydney, was building something that belonged entirely to her. And Kael had started volunteering at a youth center in town, working with at-risk kids, teenagers mostly, the ones who reminded him of himself at that age, angry, lost, looking for power because they felt powerless. He couldn't erase his past, couldn't undo the violence, couldn't bring back the people who died because of decisions he'd made. But he could try to stop other kids from making the same choices. It wasn't redemption. Nothing would ever be redemption. But it was something. Appa, Nari called from the counter. Come taste this. Tell us if we got the seasoning right. Kael walked over. Tried the kimchi. It's perfect. Liar. It needs more gochugaru. You're right. It needs more gochugaru. Nari grinned and added more pepper flakes. Iris laughed and kissed his cheek. And for a moment, just a moment, everything was simple. Not easy, never easy, but simple. A father, a partner, a child. Making food in a kitchen that smelled like home. Outside, the ocean rolled eternal. Seabirds called. The sun painted the water in shades of gold. And inside, 3 people who'd walked through fire and somehow emerged on the other side stood together in a kitchen that smelled like garlic and chili and survival. They'd lost everything to get here, and gained something they'd never had before. Peace. Imperfect. Fragile. Requiring constant work and vigilance, and the conscious choice to be better than the worst parts of themselves, but real and worth every sacrifice. Kael looked at Iris stirring kimchi while Nari chattered about her day at school, and he felt something he'd spent 20 years convinced he didn't deserve. Happiness. Not the shallow kind bought with money or power, the deep kind built from small moments, burnt garlic, laughter, hands held during nightmares. Choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. He'd been a king, a phantom, a monster wearing human skin. Now he was just a man trying to be worthy of the family he'd somehow been given. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The kimchi finished fermenting 3 days later. They ate it together, the three of them, sitting on the deck under stars while the ocean breathed below. Nari had drawn a new picture that afternoon. She'd taped it to the refrigerator before dinner. 3 figures. No walls, no shadows. Just 3 people holding hands on a beach with the sun shining bright and clear above them. And underneath, in careful English letters, "My family, forever." Kael looked at that drawing and felt tears he'd been holding back for 2 years finally break free. Iris took his hand. Nari leaned against his shoulder, and they sat together as the stars wheeled overhead and the Pacific whispered its ancient songs. Somewhere in Seoul, the empire he'd built had been carved up and distributed among new players. The tower he'd ruled from stood empty. The name Kael Ryu had faded into legend, a cautionary tale whispered in dark rooms by men who dealt in violence and fear. But here, on a cliff overlooking the ocean, in a small house built from love instead of blood, Kael Minjae Ryu had found something worth more than any empire. He'd found home, and he would defend it with everything he had left, not with bullets or violence, but with presence, with patience, with the stubborn refusal to let darkness win. One day at a time, one burnt garlic meal at a time, one drawing at a time, until the shadows finally faded and all that remained was light.